today's committee to order. Also, this is a joint committee with Workforce Development. Madam Clerk, can you assign one of the members from Workforce pro temp for the MSP committee? Which member are you going to assign? I said, which member are you going to assign pro temp?
Spencer?
Okay. All right, can you call the roll for municipal services, please?
Bishop?
Here.
Starr? Harrison? Jones? Casey?
Present.
Kelly? Moore? Spencer? Present.
Madam Clerk, can you excuse the absences of Councilwoman Rebecca Moore and Councilman Richard Starr? Okay, Councilwoman Santana?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this morning, we're going to listen to ordinance number 313-2024. Oh, I have to call the roll on my end, too? Okay. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll? Yes.
Santana? Present. House Jones? Ray? Here. Slide? Spencer? Present. Starr? Casey?
Present.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So good morning. Once again, we are hosting a co-joint committee hearing with Municipal Services and Workforce, and we are listening to ordinance number 313-2024, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance on behalf of the Office of Prevention, Intervention, and Opportunity for Youth and Young Adults to employ one or more professional consultants to design and implement projects to support the transformation of city recreation centers into trauma-informed neighborhood resources and recreation centers, to develop and provide programs and activities for youth and their families, to serve as tools to prevent violence, develop skills and knowledge to overcome challenges associated with trauma and toxic stress, and to create opportunities for youth and their families to live quality lives for a period not to exceed a total term of 18 months, with one or more options to renew for an additional total term not to exceed 18 months, by Director of Finance. Good morning, Chief. Commissioner, are you coming up too, or just Chief? Okay. Good morning, and thank you. I did receive the presentation. I know you said you have copies, or no? Did they give copies? Madam Clerk, do we have the presentations? Oh, it's in the tablets, okay.
Madam Clerk, I think there are printed copies.
Printed copy, okay.
For the presentation,
No? Okay. That's right.
No, it was
No.
actually a PowerPoint.
Yeah, there's a PowerPoint. Hold on.
It is, but I
Yes.
also gave you hard copies of the presentation.
Maybe they're under the ones that are on top. Oh, okay. Got it. Thank you, Chief.
it's also in your turn.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
start.
Thank you, Councilman Bishop and Councilwoman Santana, for hosting this joint committee meeting to hear 313-2024. This is basically to support expanded programs for this summer. This is the traditional group of out-of-school time programming that we make available in the Recreation Center, complementary to the traditional rec programs. Let's see, I'm going to advance the slide here. And so we'll just spend a little time talking a little bit about what we've done most recently and then what it is that we're doing this summer. And so just as a reminder, our expanded programs focuses on 6 main areas: youth and adult education, job and career readiness, health and wellness, leadership, mentorship, and community service, the arts, and non-traditional sports and recreation. In addition to that, the work that is also led by my colleague to my left, Eugenia Cash Kirkland, we work to support all of the staff in the rec centers in trauma-informed care and bringing that support to the rec centers through our social support specialists. In 2023, we were able to have 26 contracts that covered these different areas. And we came to you all before the budget hearings and that process and shared with you those programs and some of the results. For 2024, we have funding for 18 areas. This is also supporting the same key 6 types of programs in the recreation centers. If you look at this slide that's in your packet, it gives you a sense of what we are offering from a seasonal level and what the participation has been looking like. We've spoken before about the work that we've all had to do to try to get people back into the recreation centers post-COVID. And what's really exciting is you'll see from these graphs that the number of participants have been increasing gradually from summer 22 to summer 23. You'll see that they doubled, and we're expecting that we're going to continue to see that kind of growth this summer. For 2023, you'll see all of the contracts that we were able to put through, as well as how many seasons participants participated in and what the overall maximum capacity was for each of those programs. You've shared with us before the importance of data, and so we wanted to make sure that you had that available to you. Most of our contracts were for 1 year, and they run from June through May or September through August each year. For 2024, you'll see a tighter group of programs that we'll be making available. And overall, this year, our contract services budget not only includes the expanded programs, but the legislation that you already heard for our employment programs. And so you've already heard that legislation. But for today, it is specifically for the 2024 contracts.
Chief, really quick, sorry to,
No, go ahead.
just going back to the capacity by contracts, this YOU summer employment, the 699, is that included in the 1 million that we passed, or is that in addition?
The YOU summer employment, you've already passed that.
Okay, okay.
And so
this-
today, we're just focused on the expanded programs.
Got it, okay.
I also wanted to make mention that with Councilman Conwell's advocacy, we are also supporting the administration of 4 arts programs. And so those 4 arts programs are here as well. And so you'll see on this last slide that our overall budget for the year, $1.4 million for the expanded program services, which is the legislation before you today. And then the $1.3 million is what you already passed, which supports the youth and young adult employment. And I'm not sure what's happening with the last slide here. It doesn't want to show your beautiful pictures, but we do appreciate meeting all of our council members throughout the course of last year at the different recreation centers, able to highlight some of the expanded programs that were taking place.
We got the pictures here.
So yeah, they're in your packet, but for whatever reason, they won't come up on the screen. They're there though, but they won't come up. Ah, there you go. One more button.
Oh, I didn't realize that was Councilman Polanzik in the middle. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So you and I had a chance to meet, but I do have several questions. One being, how long has this program been in place?
And so the expanded programs have been a part of the recreation programs going back a couple of years, and I'm going to go back and cheat and look at my graph here, going back to the winter of 2021.
21, so about 3 years.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we have enough data that proves maybe the impact of the project? Do we know like what's happening with kids? Any success stories?
Yes, and I will actually even ask my colleague, Eugenia Cash Kirkland, to share some of the success stories that she's been seeing. But before that, I will just say to you, even if you look at the attendance alone, you will see that we've seen a growth in participation. And so that says to us that people are seeing the value of the different programs, and they're starting to get a feel for the opportunities, and they're coming back to take full advantage of the opportunities. I will also just offer, we know this summer in particular, a number of the programs that have been made available through the school district will no longer be available. And so we're working really hard with the district, with the public library, with Starting Point to make sure we have a robust grouping of opportunities for kids all across the city. And we definitely want to make sure that we're elevating what's happening in the rec centers to be a part of that.
Got it. So just for clarity, does that mean that maybe some of these programs will be housed in the Cleveland Public Library?
Not the expanded programs, but we do have a partnership with Cleveland Public Library for our social support specialists, where we do have specialists at the public library branch as well. And the whole idea is we want our support specialists to go where the needs are. But I'll pause and I'll let Director Cash Kirkland talk a little bit about that.
Director?
Well, good morning, council members. To Councilman Santana and the other body at the table. One of the things that we are dealing with right now in the city of Cleveland is environmental PTS for our young people. And so for them to have a sense of purpose, for them to have a sense of tangible outcomes, it's really important that we support them in their endeavors so that they can have a sense of hope instead of a sense of hopelessness. And so when they have jobs, when they have responsibilities, when they have connectors throughout the community to help to support them with whatever issues and concerns that may present, it is just valuable and it's just tangible. So we do have support specialists working in the libraries, and they actually support the different individuals that come in, whether it's navigating them to different services, whether it's hooking them up to homelessness, but whatever situations that they present, we meet them where they are and we address and help them facilitate their needs. For our young people, to work is very important to them. It gives them a sense of being, it gives them a sense of responsibility. It also gives them a sense of community engagement and advocacy because they take pride in themselves. Right now with the situation with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, we have also worked with one of our other partners in working with Say Yes and sharing with them the fact that because of the problems with the school district, it would be really nice if their individuals that work there, that work in the different schools throughout the city, can partner with the library adjacent to that school to give further support and encouragement to the young people in the community. So throughout these last couple of days in the schools, we are sharing with them that Say Yes will also be housed at a library along with the support specialists. And so just trying to do some coordination, some collaboration, some partnerships, build some safety net as weavers in the community. I consider my staff as well as other entities in the community that we partner with as weavers of the net. And so it's very important that we collaborate in partnership and trying to support our young people, not only with helping them get jobs, but just keeping them connected with different services throughout the community to help to sustain them.
Got it. Thank you. And this is just my last question or just comment, Chief Director. I don't have a rec center, and my rec centers are pretty spread out, so I'm not sure where my kids are going. But I do know that there's an organization in my neighborhood, City Life, which I would love to support at some point. I'm not sure how this could, I don't know, we could include them eventually. I know for this one, we're already set with these contracts, but if you could include that in probably possible future plans, because there's about 60 to 70 kids that are there, and it's so important for us to actually be where the kids are at,
Yes.
rather than than reinventing the wheel. So that is my comment, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, but I'm not sure if you have any.
I just want to say thank you, Councilwoman Santana, and I would say yes, we have figured out ways with these resources and partnerships to support where young people are, and so we're happy to start to talk to you about that this summer. So by the time the RFPs are out again in the fall, we've done a good job of preparing for that person, that organization to have an opportunity. We currently have a couple of programs that way, and as I mentioned, we are also administering 4 arts programs that Councilman Conwell has elevated to support young people in other safe spaces, right? We know that the rec centers are not the only spaces where young people are, and we want to try to find that balance between getting them to recreation centers by supporting and complementing the things that are there, but also going in some spaces and communities where it makes more sense to support another third space and safe space for our young people.
Thank you, Chief. So, Councilman Casey? Oh, you have it? You're ready? Okay. Bishop? Councilman Bishop?
Thank you, Chairwoman Santana. So do we have a breakdown as far as where these kids or where the services are being rendered at? Do we have the number of kids that's attending certain rec centers? Do we have a breakdown by that, or just have number of participants?
Right now, we have a number of participants. One thing that we're very excited about, Recreation, along with ITS and PIO, have been working on a new system called Civics 2.0. And this new tracking system will allow us to track more at the individual level than we've been able to do in the past. And
Okay,
so that's
so-
something that'll happen in the next year.
So it won't happen in 2024?
Yes, it will start in 2024.
Okay, so when you come back to the table, we'll have a breakdown of, like, I'm interested in seeing how many folks or how many children, how many people are being serviced through my rec center. So we can kind of measure the data from year to year to year.
Yes,
Okay?
and we'll be able to start that with the new Civics 2.0 system.
Okay, all right.
What I do also want to underscore for you, Councilman Bishop, and others, our rec center programs are also traditionally more of a drop-in based kind of program. And so that means more young people kind of come in and out into our programs. And that's a little bit different from maybe, say, a traditional camp where a young person would be committed for 5 weeks every day. And so you're going to see some distinctions between drop-in based kinds of programs and some of the newer programs that we're bringing online. So we're partnering with Commissioner Gibson Tanner this year for day camps, for example, at Camp Forbes. That will be able to track for the full duration of that camp. But the data will vary, but Civics 2.0 will help us do a better job of tracking that wide range of data points you're looking for.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Councilman Bishop. Next in line, I have Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And Chief, I don't sit on workforce development, so please allow me some leeway in some of my questions in regards, because I've never had the opportunity to engage through this committee. So looking at your 2023 and 2024 contracts, I see that you have City Council award allocated under calculation for 4 organizations. Is that money, to the chair, to the chief, is that money that council allocates that you guys are overseeing? Explain to me how that works with your capacity by contract.
Through the chair to Councilman Casey, the 4 awards of $25,000 each City Council Arts Awards are being administered by the PIO office this year.
This year it is.
Yes.
Okay, and then how come those aren't in the 2024 contract?
And so that's because it is a different set of funds. It is not a part of this grouping of dollars.
Okay, but it was in 2023.
It was in 2023. It was not in 2022. It's sort of been different every year.
Okay, and then, Ms. Chairwoman, to the chief, 2023 you have Little Leagues, and then in 2024 you have Little Leagues Rugby. do you know what, was rugby in 2023 as well? Or is 2024, is this a new contract that you guys are looking to implement in 2024?
To the councilman, I believe it is the exact same contract, but I will double check that for you.
All right, and then, Ms. Chairwoman, to the chief, can you let me know where those are being played and out of, I don't believe the rec centers have a rugby league, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if we've gotten there yet.
Through the chair to the councilman, as I expressed earlier, sometimes when there's a program where there's interest, if there's another safe third space for us to have the program, we will do that. And this particular program in the past has taken place with the refugee response community at their facility.
Okay. And then we have for capacity of contract 2023, you have maximum participants on 2023 and 2024. Can we get the actual participants? I see the maximum, but I'm sure not every one of these programs have been maxed out, right? So we're taking credit for 3,169 kids in 23, and then 1968 in 2024. And that's a big goal, right? And I'm hoping we can achieve that. Can we get the actual numbers for 2023 as opposed to the maximum numbers?
Through the chair to Councilman KZ, so just to be clear, we wanted to make sure you knew what we had capacity for. We're not saying that we reached that capacity in
No, I know.
2023. What we're saying as far as capacity numbers in 2023 and before that is the chart that you see here that shows what we've been able to track previously without the support of Civics 2.0. And so just to clarify that point.
Okay. And then there's no executive summary it's not on my tablet, and I don't see one. Can you tell me how much this award, the chairperson to the chief, how much this is for?
Yes, we are requesting in 2024, $1.4 million is $1,402,085.
1 million.
1,402,085.
On the certificate of funds, Madam Chairwoman, there's a discrepancy then, because on the certificate of funds, we have 1,377,590, which is what our Director of Finance and our Commissioner of Accounts have signed off on. So
Let me double check my paperwork here. My team member who manages this is out today, and so let me double check that number.
all right, Madam Chairwoman, just on that, because that's what we have, I'd like to proffer an amendment. Under Section 2, if we could add line 2, in the sum not to exceed $1,377,590.
And can you repeat that, Councilman? I was
What-
trying to look in my notes
It would be
here.
$1,377,590.
Okay. And it looks like this was all based on the projections at that time in March. I'm just looking at the date. And the final on all of the contracts did come up to the amount that I have before you. So I'm not sure what we could do to make this correction. It looks like there was a typo from my office.
Okay. Well, we have a second. Any discussion? Any questions?
Madam Clerk, Chair,
Councilman Hairston?
thank you. If the finance director signed off on the 1.377, where would the other funds come from?
Chief?
From a grant or general fund or what?
I think this original was based on projections at the time, and we did not catch the paperwork to make this correction. And so I apologize.
So what's the difference with your cost and this cost?
Can I have that document back? Thank you.
So what happens in that case?
Is this a 509?
It's actually on the tablet as well.
Yes, $24,495 is what I'm showing.
Is that a cost for another organization, or do you know what's the difference?
I do not have that level of detail with me.
Madam Chairwoman, some of the tablets do have the executive summary, and the executive summary has $1,377,590.
Yeah, I think we've got a issue on our side where we had one projection, and then we got to a final number, and the paperwork was not caught. And so I would ask that we proceed with the dollar amount that you all have in front of you, and then we'll have to figure out on our side where the gap is and come back for that.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Can I start discussion? Madam Clerk, can you call the vote? Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Yes.
Star, Hairston,
Am I? Yes. No, I didn't know if I was on the, okay, yes.
Jones, Casey. Yes. Kelly, Moore, Spencer. Yes. Santana,
Yes.
House Jones. Yes. Gray. Yes. Jones, Sly, Spencer, Star. 8 yes.
Okay, motion passes, and go ahead, Councilman Casey.
That was it.
That was it, okay. Next in line, I have Councilman Hairston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking at the presentation, the programs that are listed, Councilman Casey already asked one question to get us actually who participated in these programs throughout at the different rec centers. How were you said an RFP went out through the chair to the chief and director. A RFP went out for people to respond to provide the programs. Is that the case through the chair?
Through the chair to Councilman Harrison, that is correct.
Okay. Did we already request Mrs. Chair, that where each rec center the programs are located? Did we request that?
Councilman Hairston, can you
Because I know
repeat
America Scores is not at every rec center, right?
Oh.
Did we make the request to figure out which programs are offered at which rec centers? We did.
Councilman Bishop did.
We did ask for that? Okay. Great. So RFP went out for folks to respond to provide the service. How did you decide the dollar amounts per contract award? Through the chair.
Through the chair to Councilman Harrison, each RFP proposal usually will tell you based on the number of people served, the number of seasons served, what the cost would be for the project.
Okay, so they just submitted in their proposal, they can serve this amount of students. This is what it'll cost to serve this amount of students. Did we ask for it? Did we provide them at any point who and how many we wanted to serve, or was it it was from them to us, not kind of us to them?
Through the chair to Councilman Harrison, it typically works with those proposals coming to a committee. The committee reviews the proposals, and if there are edits or changes they'd like to recommend, they will usually go back out to that organization and ask for them to revise and let them know what the additional requests might cost.
Okay. All right. Got it. Okay, I'm fine. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Hairston. Next in
Oh,
line.
no, one last
Go
question.
ahead.
Earlier you asked to the chair whether this, because you have under the 2024 capacity by contract, you have YOU, you have these listings here, but then you have a couple slides down, the YOU contract, which is 1.3. You said we already passed the 1.3. I know the previous passage of the YOU employment was it 1.3? Was it? I thought it was just $1 million that we added. Do you expect to come back for the 3.97?
Through the chair to Councilman Harrison, we already passed the employment dollars for this year for YOU.
Okay.
We only need to pass the expanded program dollars.
That's the only other part.
Which is what we're here for today.
Okay. I didn't, for some reason, 1.3 is not the number that I was thinking about that we passed a couple months ago. I thought it was just $1 million that we passed previously. So I didn't know whether you need to come back for the, $400,000 or that was taken care of separately as well.
Through the chair to the councilman, you've already taken
So
care
we're
of
all
the
good.
youth employment
Okay.
dollars.
And I
Yes.
think what you're thinking, Councilman, is that 1 million did go to YOU, but then the extra 300,000 went towards employment and a couple other organizations.
Okay, not all while you. Got you.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Got it. Okay. Councilwoman Spencer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to take this opportunity to learn and put together other pieces of the puzzle in my mind as well. First, I wanted to know, through the chair, we have not yet talked about this flyer, correct?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, we have not. The flyer that you're holding up is the summer soundtrack. This is a collaborative effort between the city, Cleveland Schools, YOU, Starting Point, Cleveland Public Library, and a host of other smaller organizations that host summer programming opportunities. And that was really for context to share with you all today that we're trying to partner with all of those entities to make sure we have quality summer experiences this summer for all of our young people in the city of Cleveland.
Thank you. I'm really interested in learning more about this branding and this collaboration. I can tell that a lot went into this. But my first question through the chair is just to clarify, again, as we continue to emerge out of a time when certain dollars were more plentiful during the pandemic, things are changing. So I wanted to clarify that part of this is a transition because CMSD will not be funding its full CMSD summer learning experience as it has in years past. And I wanted to just get that clear in my mind. I think for the past 2 to 3 summers, we've really been emphasizing that programming. So wanting to clarify whether that's accurate and whether this summer soundtrack branding is moving more into the collaborative partnerships to give youth places to plug in, through the chair.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, that's exactly right. You hit it right on the nose. We know that this summer, the larger dollars through ESSER funding that came down through the federal government, it was basically the school district's version of ARPA, have sunset. And so because of that, all school districts, including our own, are making different choices for the summer. CMSD, however, is really being targeted and focusing on scholars who need more academic time, as well as coupling it with enrichment. And so they will be focusing on K-4 students, as well as high school age students across the city in 11 buildings. And then they also have a band camp as a part of the experience. And what the city of Cleveland, through our expanded programs, through traditional recreation, through our YOU jobs, what we're doing is complementing that and making sure that programs like the legislation that's before you today can be there to provide additional supports to young people who might not otherwise have the opportunity.
Great, thank you. And one more question about the flyer. There's a lot of information here. I think it's presented pretty much as clearly as one could given the array of programming. I'm curious whether what on this flyer is new that didn't exist last year, and or is it putting programming together in a different, organizing the information in a different way. And specifically, the summer breakfast and lunch program, is that a CMSD? Whose program is the summer breakfast and lunch program, through the chair?
And so through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, we've been doing that in recreation under the leadership of Commissioner Gibson Tanner, offering meals for young people throughout the course of the summer. CPL also offers meals as well.
Okay, so this is a continuation, the meal program is a continuation of prior years.
Yes. What we're hoping that's going to happen through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer is if we are collectively cross-promoting all of these opportunities, and if we are doing a better job of collaborating on the front end, we can do a better job of filling gaps. And so, for example, one of our ask out to a lot of the OST providers is CMSD is going to be offering programming K-4 high school. Well, what are we going to do for kids 5th through 8th grade? As we think about our expanded programs, how do we work with our different providers to make sure they're focusing as much as possible on 5th through 8th grade? And so it really is a way for us to, just like you would in your household, you got to kind of tighten up the pocketbook, the dollars that we have available, how do we spend them as wisely as we can to meet all of our needs.
Thank you. And actually, I do really like this branding, by the way. I think it's eye-catching. And but I wanted to ask through the chair whether our RF programs, is enrollment already open for our summer programs through the city of Cleveland?
And so through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, the way that this has been rolled out, the first focus is soundtrack number 1, which is the CMSD learning. So a lot of emphasis right now is being placed on that because for the kids who really do need the academic time in the classroom, the goal is to really encourage them to be there and be in the classroom. So that just started last week. And then as you all know, the jobs have already started with YOU. So we're also really pushing that hard. We'll start to push harder once we get this legislation passed and our other OST partners are finished with their planning, all of the other summer program opportunities for the summer.
Okay, great. And I know my other colleagues have touched upon the dollars, but I want to make sure I also have those puzzle pieces together in my mind on the funding side. Is 313-2024, is this something we have done in prior years? Okay, so this is a repeat?
Yes, this is a repeat piece of legislation.
Okay. And then on the second to last slide in your deck, there's the 2024 budgeted amount for contracted services. We've already talked about the employment. Through the chair, can we talk about how the dollars in 313, I think it's a slightly different slide, a little bit later in the deck. There you go. How do these dollar amounts dovetail in terms of what's on the slide and then what's presented in 313?
Yes, and so through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, I think we've assessed that we have an error in terms of what was in the legislative summary as a projection back in March and what our final numbers are. And so, I heard everyone say that they would go up to what's in the legislative summary, and I asked that we be given the opportunity to come back for the additional dollars since that was a mistake on our side, so we apologize for that.
Okay, so thank you. I was wanting to make sure I caught on. So the number on the slide, for now, there's legislative authority rather than the 1.40285. We are talking about 1,337,590.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. And then my final question is, in the executive summary, these, through the chair, all of these have already responded to the RFP and been selected.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, that is correct.
I'm curious to know what is, for example, the CWRU PD program through the chair.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, as you know, we talked a little earlier on at the top about these expanded program dollars. and how they support two main areas. We've got our 6 areas of direct programming, which is at the top there, that support young people coming into centers or other safe spaces in community to be a part of a program. The last part is the professional development. And so Case Western Reserve University Professional Development is a series that we do in partnership with Recreation and PIO staff to continue to train our staff members in trauma-informed care training. I'm going to pause and let Director Kirkland tell you a little bit more about that training.
Basically, in working with our young people in the city of Cleveland, we utilize a trauma-informed base, not only addressing the needs and the issues and concerns that they present to us, but making sure that they're trained and that their toolbox is equipped with how we work with young people. Everything in life is in presentation, and we want to ensure that our staff know how to work with the young people and not only address the issues and concerns that are presented to them, but actually to help with the root of the problem and trying to help with a healing engagement component. Our young people come with a lot of baggage, as do some of the adults that come into the rec center, and we just try to help them to navigate through different supportive services to help address those issues and concerns. So Case Western Reserve help us to understand different models, help us to understand the engagement component, help us with healing, and help us in how we can articulate a doable pattern in working with our young people. As I mentioned before, we are all in environmental PTSD, and they help us to navigate through resources to support that.
Thank you. So I think through the chair, it's worth clarifying that the expanded programs, in addition to being programs that children and youth can enroll in, some of these programs are related to capacity building within our NRRCs. And then my final question would be, just curious about, again, some of these grantees. For example, through the chair, could you explain a little bit more about Reach Success and Cray Consulting?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, Reach Success is one of the programs that's been providing tutoring and academic support services. Cray is one of the programs that has been providing some health and wellness opportunities for people of all ages in the recreation centers.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'll conclude my questions with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Spencer. I don't know. Councilwoman House-Jones, nothing? Okay. Nothing else? Okay, well, that concludes. Sorry, Councilwoman Gray.
Councilwoman, yes, I have just a couple of questions. Seemed like this a pretty good setup for the summer programs for the rec centers per se, but I have questions about the Cleveland Public Library 2-hour summer programs. Chair to Director, where these programs, how long have these programs been set up, have been partnered with the rec centers, you know, with the library? Because you said, you said that we have a specialist in the library, working, we have a support specialist from the library working with the rec centers, correct? Was that spoken earlier, Chair too?
So through the chair to Councilwoman Gray, about maybe 4 months ago, we had contact with the library because we have ongoing relationship with them. And they had presented a concern that they had a lot of young people that came into the main library downtown with issues and concerns that they could not address. And they were concerned that there was no one there to support them. And in that conversation, we had one of our rec centers to close. And so my thinking was, what if we allow that person to go into the main library to support and assist as young people come in, and we can navigate them to resources in the community, but also we can try to find out what neighborhood recreation center do they live near so that we can actually sway them to go there for ongoing support and assistance. Mm-hmm. So for example, a young person may come into the main library, and this all started about 4 months ago, and they may have a problem that they're trying to address, whether it's something with school, with an IEP, or just with trying to get resources for their family. And so what we can do is assist them and support them then, but then we could also refer them to the support specialist near their school so they can get ongoing support. So because the need was presented, we decided, well, hey, it would be nice if 4 days a week we can have someone there to support. Not only do we find that we have supported the young people, but we have also been able to support adults as well and seniors who have presented to the library with a problem to help. So it basically all just kicked off about 4 months ago. And then when we had the situation with the school system, had a conversation with the director of Say Yes, because they were going to try to find different entities throughout the community that they can support the families. So if a Say Yes coordinator is at Collinwood School working with young people, then Collinwood Rec Center is closed, but also there's a library. And so one of the things that they're going to be doing this summer is not only are they going to be putting a support person in the library near that school, they're also going to put a person to come and support with us at the Rec Center. And we've been working very closely with the library. We've been working closely with the commissioner and trying to articulate safe places for young people to go and align themselves with individuals that they're already comfortable with and who they already know. So it was birthed in PIO, and I'm just really thankful and appreciative that it's able to acclimate it throughout the community to support the individuals that we service.
Okay, well, that's great news, and that's good to know. So do you have any statistics to say, since this started 4 months ago, do you have any statistics to say how many of these support specialists has assisted in this operation? Has it started yet, or you just built it 4 months ago to incorporate it with the summer programs in the rec?
So
Chair two.
So through the chair to Councilwoman Gray, it actually, the conversation was birthed about 4 months ago, but we actually started it maybe about a month ago. And it's interesting that in the time that it has started, we have seen over 25 to 30 individuals throughout the main library. And so what I can do is get more doable data. And what I share with people, data is a person. And so each story is a success on its own, and some of the stories that we have gathered from there have been very pivoting and have been very life-changing and very meaningful. And so, yes, I can get those numbers for you, but numbers is a person, and some of the stories are more powerful than that number, and I will be definitely providing you with that information.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Also, another question pertaining to the collaboration with the support, with the support specialists with the rec centers. I know I had tried to initiate something to this aspect a month or two ago to work with Charles Dickens and the 131st Library and the Hamilton Rec Center on 131st, and I had collaborated a meeting with I forget how to pronounce her name, Palmer, for the CMS. Yeah, Palmer-Rest, yes. I collaborated that initiative to set up a meeting to have the 131st Library, Charles Dickens, and Hamilton Rec to collaborate in that area to bring more our children together in that particular area, so they can create programs in such a way whereas it will support all the children needs, even at summer activities, social services, and I wanted to, and I suggested that all three of them work together to bring some type of programs in that particular area back and forth. So I was just curious on this because we had a meeting. The meeting ended up at Frederick Davis instead of Hamilton Rec. So, and I was just curious about that because a lot of the Say Yes coordinators was there. The principal from Charles Dickens was there because she kind of requested that from me because she wanted to get to know more people in that area and to bring some sort of programming between at the school. So I wanted her to collaborate with our director, Jackson at Hamilton, and also to collaborate with a community coordinator at the 131st Library. So that's why I was curious on about this summer program, how that all came about, as well as what I was trying to do a month or so ago. And we had a big meeting at Frederick Douglass, but it did not continue on the way that I would have loved to in the for Ward 4, because Charles Dickens is the only school in Ward 4, and I was trying to build something to that capacity just along 131st line so a program could get set up. And I see that since you have the summer program here, and it's not on the list, so that's why I question about how you have this set up for the summer program at the other libraries that's working with the rec center.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Gray, collaboration is key, and all of these things are actually connected. And so I went back to this deck where you see your colleague, Councilman Polenzek, in the center. He actually is the person that helped to initiate all of these gatherings. Myself, Chief Pomerantz, Councilman Harrison, we were all at the kickoff at Collinwood, and this is how it happened, because all of the council members here took the time last year to visit in recreation centers with the PIO staff to really see firsthand what is going on. Out of that very first meeting with Councilman Polenzek, his words were, "We've got a lot of good things happening. All of the schools need to be aware." At that time, we were transitioning to get a new chief of education, and I said to him, "I'll make the commitment when the new chief of education starts, we will meet with that person and get their help to organize the schools to come to the recreation centers." And so we're really grateful that Chief Pomerantz, my colleague in the administration, was willing to do that. We met with Councilman Polenzek. We kicked off the very first one at Collinwood, and she's done a great job of going in each neighborhood to do the same thing. And what we're hearing from a lot of principals is that this is the first time that they've been invited to come to the recreation center and learn more about what our centers have available. And so complementary to that is the summer soundtrack work. We want our principals to have their kids in the rec centers year round. And so those individual meetings are really just getting to know them. So thank you for partnering with Chief Pomerantz to get the folks together in your ward. We're going to continue those conversations, and one of the things that everyone who attended all of those meetings, they'll be receiving the summer soundtrack information, and if they're a Cleveland Metropolitan school, they're also receiving it internally.
Okay, that's great to hear. So I'm not going to, that's great. I have just one more question. So how can I collaborate with the 131st Library, Charles Dickens, and Alexander Hamilton with this program that's already going to be set up for the summer? And I really appreciate my colleague that got this started. Mike Polensky got this started last year, but I would like to collaborate that in that particular area if I can if I can assist to get something going on for those three areas.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councilwoman Gray. However you like to, we would love to get the information out first and foremost to every child in that community, particularly those who could use the extra academic boost this summer. So I think partnering with you to encourage those families to make sure their kids sign up and actually go and get those academic experiences, and then whatever else we can do to try to do a better job of ensuring that the programming we're going to make available in partnership with recreation, that they know when it's happening, how it's happening, and how they can get involved.
Okay.
So definitely want to help and would love your help in promoting. And I remember last year you and I knocked on doors together.
Yes, we
so
did.
Let's just plan to do
Yes,
it
we
again.
did. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So that concludes the Workforce and Municipal Service Joint Meeting, ordinance number 313-2024, will move to Finance Committee today. And now I will turn it over to you, Councilman Bishop.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. We're going to start here. We're going to call the roll for MSP, and also can I appoint Councilwoman Santana Pro Temp for our committee, Madam? Hold on just a minute.
Through to the chair, to council members. So the amendment has been voted on and passed.
Yes. Yeah.
So are we dismissed?
We all said yes, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
I didn't have a
yeah,
problem. We didn't have
okay.
any objections.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll for MSP? Here. All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Just to give a quick, our schedule from here on, we're going to hear 4 pieces of legislation, and then we're going to follow that by a presentation of our capital plan. All right, do we have any guests in this morning that's representing? Can we have the guests come up first with the appropriate director? All right, what piece of legislation are you?
We are introducing the information about the Lone Soldier Memorial.
Okay. All right, that is ordinance number 3.
Chairman, it's ordinance 311-2024.
Okay, all right.
All right, Chair, to the council, we have a team here that is
Hold on
here
just a
to-
minute, hold on just a
Excuse
minute.
me.
All right, we're here to hear ordinance number 311-2024 by council members Bishop, McCormick, and Griffin. This is a departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works and/or Port Control as appropriate to enter into a license agreement with the USS Cleveland Legacy Foundation or its designee to install and maintain the Lone Sailor Monument at the northwest corner of city-owned property in Voinovich Park, and to make improvements to the area surrounding the monument for initial term of 1 year and automatically renewing year to year for a period up to 25 years unless terminated by either party. Okay, Director, would you introduce your guest here at the table this morning?
Absolutely. Here from MOCAP, we have Commissioner DeGennaro. From Port Control, we have John Hoos. And then our guest today is Jody McHugh from AECOM. And they will be giving you more details about the Lone Soldier Monument.
Okay. All right, Commissioner.
Thank you. The legislation authorizes the Director of Public Works and the Director of Port Control to issue a license renewable from year to year. It's a non-exclusive license for up to 25 years to the USS Cleveland Legacy Foundation to install and maintain the Lone Sailor Monument in the northwest corner of Voinovich Park. The monument is a replica of the original currently on display in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Navy Memorial. It was designed by Stanley Blyfeld, who enlisted in the Navy during the Second World War. The monument is intended to pay tribute to the men and women who are currently serving or have served in the U.S. Navy, and is also intended to raise awareness of the future Navy ship, the USS Cleveland, which is currently under construction in Wisconsin and scheduled to be commissioned in Cleveland in the year 2025. Today, there are 17 replicas of the Lone Sailor Monument on display around the world, and Cleveland is the location of the 18th. The monument is currently temporarily on display at the Great Lakes Science Center and will be moved to this area of Voinovich Park to welcome the USS Cleveland to the shores of Lake Erie. In addition to the monument, the foundation will make additional improvements to Voinovich Park, including new pavers, 4 benches, 2 donor walls, and some landscaping, all of which will be maintained by the foundation at no cost to the city. And the foundation will also contribute 5% to the common area maintenance budget for Voinovich Park. The proposal has been fully vetted and approved by the City Plan Commission. Thank you.
Okay, do you have any kind of photo of the monument here for us to view today?
Chairman, there should be slides of the monument and the improvements on your tablet.
Okay. Okay. Would your guest like to make a comment?
Thank you. I'm just excited to present this to you today and have it be part of our Cleveland shoreline.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open this ordinance number 311 up to questions from my colleagues. Are there any questions on ordinance number 311, 2024? No questions? Seeing no questions, ordinance number 311, 2024 stands approved. Please sign. Congratulations. We are looking forward to seeing a new monument up at Voinovich Park.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinance, next up is ordinance number 305, 2024. Okay. By council members Bishop and Griffin, this is a departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to apply for and accept a grant from the Cleveland Guardians Charities for the baseball and softball summer youth program. Okay, Director, you want to speak on this piece of legislation?
Yes, good morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee. Thank you for having us today. We are asking for permission to pass the legislation that authorizes this department to accept the grant for baseball and softball activities in the city of Cleveland through our youth programs. And I have with me today Commissioner Tanner.
Okay, just a minute.
Sure.
I have to read the amendment in here. This is ordinance number 305, 2024, as amended. There's no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. Number 1, in section 2, at the end, add, quote, RQS 7004 RLA 2024-39. Okay? All right, proceed, Commissioner.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. I have Commissioner Gisson Tanner to speak to this. This is in the past we would the Guardians would pay for things that we did through the program themselves. Moving forward, their organization is not able to do that. So what they have done is now they want to grant the money to the city, and they're going to do the same things we've been doing, but now we'll be the people actually managing the money. So I have the commissioner here to answer any questions you may have about this grant and the purpose of it and why we're doing it.
Chairman, and to the committee, as the director mentioned, in previous years, we would just invoice the Guardians. So moving forward, they now, when we put in a grant, they will actually give us the funds, and we would just purchase everything from the city of Cleveland.
Okay. All right. So this grant will do what? What will this grant do? How many teams will this put on the field?
Through the chair to the committee, this grant will allow us to purchase uniforms, equipment, and pay for umpires for our baseball and softball programs in the city of Cleveland. This program is totally free to all of the kids that participate.
Okay.
The total number of teams we had in previous years was 51, servicing 784 kids in the city of Cleveland.
Okay. And were those kids, and where were the main ball fields where they played? Where were they located?
Through the chair to the committee, I want to say it's over maybe 30 fields that we played at. I can get you that list.
Okay.
Throughout the city.
Okay.
East side to west side.
Okay. All right. I want to open this up for questions from my colleagues.
Question.
Councilwoman Santana.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. She wants to. So I'm new to this committee. Just curious to know, how does this program operate? How do you recruit? Is this through the rec center? We just heard legislation about all the programming that's taking place in the rec center. Is this part of these programmings that are hosted at the rec center?
Yes. Through the chair to the councilwoman, the recruitment of these programs are through the rec centers. This is not a PIO program. This is a traditional core program developed by the Division of Recreation. So all of the kids that participate, whether they're 4-year-olds or 18-year-olds, they come in and sign up through our recreation centers.
So they could sign up in all, through the chair, I'm sorry, to the commissioner, they could sign up in any rec centers, and then is there a meeting location, and from the meeting location, they take these kids to different fields? How does that work?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, a child can sign up at any recreation center. The recreation instructors that are at that recreation center are the instructors of the team. So if we have a number of kids that sign up, say for instance at Michael's Zone, Michael's Own recreation instructor now will have that team and travel throughout the city to play. So that's at every recreation center in the city of Cleveland.
So what happens if there's not enough students signing up at the rec center? Do they join another rec center?
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the name of these teams? Are they based on the rec center?
Yes, through the chair to the councilwoman, these teams are named up under the recreation center. So what you would see is a Michael's Own team, a Zelma George team, Collinwood team, whether it's youth team, teens, or Connie Mack. They're all through the recreation center.
Got it. Who won the championship last year?
Oh, councilwoman, I don't keep up with that. My goal is to get as many kids as possible to play. I don't keep up with who wins championships.
Got it. Okay. I yield. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Santana. Councilman Joe Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at this grant here for $80,000, this would be the first time we've received, Mr. Chairman, to the director, this grant here from the Guardians.
Through the chair to the councilman, this will be the first time the city received the funds, but the activity has been happening for some time. The Guardians would pay for it for us, but now we're actually going to receive the funds. So in that sense, yes. Yeah.
Okay. And so Mr. Chairman, looking at the $80,000 and hearing exactly what the commissioner is saying is talking about there's 51 teams that serves about 784 kids in the program. And this actual grant will go to assist in the purchase of uniforms and equipment. So right now, I know we probably got some basic equipment that's already in place. So this would add on to whatever your needs are for the course of the year. When it comes to the purchase of uniforms, is that divided up between the 51 teams?
Through the chair to the council member, if a recreation center has a team, we will purchase uniforms for that team throughout the city.
I see. And this is for the proposition of baseball and softball?
Through the chair to the councilman, that is correct. So we're looking at young men and women that's playing in our rec centers.
All right, so then the next question is, Mr. Chairman, would this $80,000 cover all of that, or do we add on to that? Is this as an addition to?
Through the chair to the council member, in the past year, we invoiced the Guardians a little less than $72,000. So it did cover all of our programs throughout the city for baseball and softball.
So this actually covers all, this amount of money will cover all of your programming and funding and.
Through the chair to the council member, that is correct.
Okay. And you know, I know that each year, and I think this would be very helpful because we just had, just previously, sitting at the table, Mrs. Pryor Jones and Mrs. Cash talking about the programs that they have and how they assist the city of Cleveland's young people. And I heard some of the comments from my colleagues here, how that program works and the systems that's in place in terms of accountability of how many young people are actually participating in these programs of services in our recreational facilities. So my question would be, and I think this would be good, Mr. Chairman, for the group too, we have a number of programs that are being performed out of our recreational facilities. It would be good, Mr. Chairman, if we had a holistic approach, because I don't think that we've ever done that before, where we talk about all of the programming that's actually happening in our recreational facilities and centers, and you know, are they actually being used and utilized? And in addition to that, do we have any new ideas? Because the proposition, Mr. Chairman, at least from where I'm sitting at, is how do we get young people back into our recreational facilities, off our streets, tie their times up, get them engaged, get them involved, so that we won't have so much of an issue in our streets right now. And as you know, juvenile issues are up in our communities. We have a lot of issues, and we'd like to have a thorough understanding of how the programs in our recreational facility work.
Through the chair to the councilman, we're already trending in that direction. As Chief Sonia Pryor-Jones was at the table prior to my visit, the collaboration between the Mayor's Office of Prevention and Intervention Opportunities, CMSD schools, even this body here, City Council body, if you notice, we send a lot of information your way. And you, the council members, put it in your newsletters, and we've been getting a lot of children and adults signing up for programming. So we are doing a much better job than we have in previous years of bringing the City of Cleveland services to people, and we're having a lot of people speak the same language. So that's one of the great things about, where we're going today.
And I would just suggest, Mr. Chairman, because as it's been noted here at the table about the CMSD, in the prior testimony this morning, earlier, Mr. Chairman, what was said earlier this morning is super important, and I submit to my colleagues sitting here at the table, we are actually in a state of an emergency when it comes to education here in the city of Cleveland. When it comes to how we educate our kids and the type of education we're giving them, when it comes to when they're out of school or in school, they're in our communities, they're in our streets, they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. We need to give this some serious attention as it relates to the funding that we have right now. I know that we've set aside, I think it's $2.8 million or something close to that amount just this morning. And so that's awfully a lot of money. The question would be, Mr. Chairman, to me in my mind, how do we survey it in such a way to navigate and understand what we're actually getting out of this. And so with what our commissioner is saying here about the various different programs and an accountability system, and that's the word I'm looking for, accountability. If we could, Mr. Chairman, if that, with certainly the privilege of the chair, have an orientation on the various different programs that the recreational facility is doing with CMSD, have a better understanding, because there's a lot of programming that comes across our tables, a lot of programming that we funded this year. There's a lot of ARPA funds that we put into a lot of programming in the city and previously, to have a better gist and grasp on how do we measure that success. Are we successful with what we're doing? Are the programs working that we're investing money into? And I would submit to you, Mr. Chairman, we are in a danger zone right now, and it's really hard for me as a person sitting here as a father of a son and a father of a daughter and a citizen here in the city of Cleveland. It's hard for me to measure, are we being successful here sitting at this table and allocating funds to these various different programs? So whereas I would say, Mr. Chairman, I'm not in any unreadiness on Ordinance 305, 2024, I just want to congratulate the Commissioner for getting these grants and being able to have this for our young people. We need to see how we focus in on that and turn in on that, tune in on it, and really start paying attention, because if we don't get serious about improving the conditions of education in this city, if we don't get serious about improving our community as it relates to monitoring these programs, as it relates to their success, we'll just be sitting here spending and giving money into programs and not being able to really evaluate their effectiveness or not. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest, humbly suggest as a member of this committee, that we have a full, thorough orientation of the various programs that are out of our recreational facilities.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Jones. All right, Commissioner.
Yeah, if I can add, though, through the chair to the councilman, one of the testimonies of what we do is attendance. And recreation programming, whether it's PIO, whether it's core programming that we have in recreation, we have increased attendance tenfold from previous years, especially before COVID, or after, I should say after COVID. So people will not come to a program if it's not beneficial. So we do have the numbers, we can submit the numbers, but all of our programming, even the baseball programs, have increased. So we're doing a fairly good job there.
No
Okay, all right, thank you, Councilman Jones. Commissioner, is this what we used to call the B-Bus program back in the day?
No, Chairman, this is not the B-Bus.
Okay, all right. All right, is there any other questions? All right, seeing no further questions, ordinance number 305, 2024 is approved. Please sign. As amended.
All right, thank you.
Okay, ordinance number 241, 2024. I tell you what, we're going to take this one, we're going to do that one last. Okay, that's by one of our members. Ordinance number 307, 2024, by council members Bishop and Griffin. This is also a departmental request. This is an emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more standard and requirement contract for the purchase, lease, or lease with options to purchase of various on-road vehicles, apparatuses, and off-road equipment, cabs, bodies, and accessories, equipment, and other aftermarket items necessary to equip the vehicles authorized for the intended purposes, including vehicle rehabilitation, training, inspections, as needed for the various divisions of city government. Okay, Director, you want to speak on this piece of legislation?
Thank you, Chair. To the Chair, to the committee as well. This piece of legislation is for us to be able to purchase equipment to prepare us for the upcoming, as we are going to take over the resurfacing program. We're doing our homework now to be ready for that as this is coming next year. And so I have with me Commissioner Jeff Brown to speak about this, but ultimately what we want to do is be able to be ready because it does take some time to purchase equipment. We want to be able to get this in place now to be able to have the rights to be able to purchase that equipment as we go for resurfacing. I'll hand it over to Commissioner Brown for any questions.
Okay. So I see on this list you have quite a bit of pieces of equipment like asphalt paving machines, asphalt milling machines. Okay, are we taking some of those? Do we currently own those pieces of equipment in our inventory now?
To the chair, we currently own equipment right now. These would all be in addition to our current fleet.
Okay, so how many paving machines? How many paving machines does the city owns?
Currently, we just took delivery of a new paving machine, so I think that put us up to 3.
3?
These would add to that, and this equipment would allow us to outfit and field another resurfacing crew.
Okay. Now, are we still contracting out some of our residential streets, or can we have the capacity to do them all in-house?
So to the chair, we are right now, but the goal is by next year to be able to take it all in-house.
Okay. So this will put us over that threshold where we can kind of handle our own street paving. Residential paving. Okay. All right. Great. That's great news. All right. Is there any questions on number 307, 2024? Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, Director? Are you Director?
Assistant Director.
Assistant Director. With this hope that you're going to be taking over all the residential side streets for next year, how much, I see there was only one additional paver in there. Mm-hmm. How much do we contract out now? And will only one additional paver give you the capacity to be able to take on everything that's contracted out now?
So through the chair to the councilman, right now, the contracting is actually done through MOCAP.
Okay.
So I would, as far as how much the dollar amount for that is, I would need to get back with those folks to find out what that is. But it's probably, I think from what I understand, it's probably about 3 or 4 wards or something like that.
All right. This just, I think it's a great idea, but I'm a little skeptical that we're going to be able to take on something that MOCAP does now, right? I mean, is the Department of Streets going to be able, Department of Streets is going to take it over, right? Is the Department of Streets going to have the capacity to be able to make sure that our side streets are done next year without going out for contract or additional bid, knowing that we don't put much money into residential side street paving, not nearly half as much as we should. But that's a different discussion. But I want to make sure that if you're asking for this and you're going to be able to tell us that you're going to take over all the residential side street paving for next year without the help or assistance from MOCAP going through those contracts, that we're going to be able to get, next year's a pretty important year. We're going to be able to make sure that we get our streets done next year.
So through the chair to the councilman, this is something we've been working with MOCAB on as well to make sure that we have the capacity and the ability to do it. This is why we came through with this list, this contract list, and the amount of people that we need to be able to. We feel pretty comfortable about being able to take it over. But again, through the chair to the councilman, in the case that we've got to pivot, we still have that ability to do that. But our goal really is to be able to take this over. We believe we've got the people, the personnel, and every year when we come back a little under, and as you know that. And we believe we can push that a little bit further to be able to take over this program. But again, we can pivot if we need to. That's never out of the realm of possibility.
Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director, and by pivot, do you mean if you don't have the ability to get it done because the equipment's not there or the personnel's not there, do you mean by pivot that you'd be able to contract out?
That through the councilman, through the chair to the councilman, if we need to do that, that's what we'll do. But I'm very confident that we can take this.
All right, and then Mr. Chairman, to the Director, does this mean that, will it be less expensive? Not the quality of work won't be less, but will it be less expensive to get a street done using our own city employees than it is by contracting out?
Through the chair to the councilman, we believe so, based on our calculations and our numbers, yes.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director, does that mean that we'll be able to spend more on streets? Or maybe not more on streets, but get more done with the dollars that are allocated for streets?
Through the chair to the councilman, barring any strange things with input prices or anything like that, we believe so.
Okay, we're going to make sure we mark this committee on this date down so that we can go back and review.
Okay.
But good luck to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Casey. Director, do we have a dollar amount that it costs us to pave a street? Is it so much per square yard or something like that? Do we have a dollar amount that's computed for that?
Through the chair to the council, to the chair, we do have a dollar amount per square foot. I may have to get that back to you. I don't have the commissioner or the assistant commissioner here, but I can get that to you in the break.
Okay, so the reason why I ask is that if we are being charged, say like if we are being charged $10 a square foot, but we can calculate that we can pave our streets for $7 a square foot, we want to see that type of comparison, okay, for us to kind of get a gauge of, if we having some cost savings or not, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, next I'm going to go to Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think your line of questioning and our colleague, Mr. Casey's line of questioning is right on the point here as relates to the various different equipment that, we invest year in and year out. My question is, I'm going to come back to the square footage piece, Mr. Chairman, but I want to talk about the light truck pickup. You have on this, the quantity is 15 trucks. Now, I remember in years past, we would have all of these various different pickup trucks, and they would go out through the neighborhood, and they would select or pick up debris, various different miscellaneous debris. As council members, in that period of time, we didn't really have to fundamentally worry about always calling into the streets division to ask them to pick up debris. We had people who were out there in these trucks, and they see it, they pick it up. Why don't we do that? Why are we not more offensive versus always reactionary?
So through the chair to the councilman, if you could just so I'm clear on debris, do you mean what type of debris are you
We're talking about like tires, a couple of bags here, a couple of tires over there, that kind of stuff, because a lot of times I'm spending a lot of time calling that information in. Riding in the neighborhood, I see a lot of different, dumps and stuff like that. In years past, I didn't have to worry about that because the streets division would always have their truck and their drivers out, and especially when it was garbage time, you always had the garbage trucks around, you had the runners, you had maybe 2 or 3 different teams in the neighborhood moving around. If they see the stuff, they report the stuff, and then the stuff is picked up. How many people do we have, Mr. Chairman, to the director that does that now?
So through the chair to the councilman, that would be a waste collection function as opposed to a streets function. And as far as the number of folks that we have to do that, I know that we have people that do tires, but I'd have to ask the Commissioner of Waste to speak about tire pickup and those types of things.
Yeah, well, like dumps, they're dumping this stuff on the side of the road, you have, and here's another thing too that's a problem, is when we have accidents, it's like the debris is still left there. So you'll have someone hit another truck or a car or whatever, or a pole, and that debris stays there on the streets. No one comes and picks it up. And I remember seeing an accident down here in downtown city of Cleveland, and I was actually over a friend's in his loft, and the fire truck, fire department, police came. I mean, they were really, the service was like a snap of a finger. The police officers were there. They were writing up this situation. The fire department had arrived on the scene. They were cleaning up the debris on the site. And we don't have that same kind of service in our neighborhoods. And I'm wondering why, Mr. Chairman, to the director, that there's such a stark difference in terms of getting Johnny-on-the-spot service like that.
So through the chair to the councilman, what I would do is I wrote some notes here. The illegal dumping crews will handle some of that, and our waste collection crews will handle some of that. So I want to find out the number of crews that we have specifically through the chair to the councilman, and if I can get back to you with that so you can know exactly.
And I would like to know, Mr. Chairman, to the director, who's who, right? Who I can call to get that kind of service. It takes up a lot of my time, Mr. Chairman, to go out and inspect my neighborhood, or respond to issues and complaints. And it would be really nice to have some of that kind of service in the Lee Harvard area. The next question, Mr. Chairman, is on asphalt, because this is the critical piece. Citizens in the city of Cleveland want to have streets that are strong and stable. So with the program that we have here, and my colleague alluded to some of that, square footage in terms of what's the market rate. Knowing what the market rate, can we beat the market rate? And if we can beat the market rate, at what cost? Because one of the problems or one of the issues is that we're charging that market rate when we could go lower. I'm just saying. So having the actual figures in place and knowing that the amount of investment that we've invested into our program to do streets, that those streets are well below that market rate as we can get it, and one. And then two, the guarantee of the street in terms of its quality. So Mr. Chairman, for an example, we did a street, and I use the street South Miles. And I'm kind of like sitting here, beating myself a little bit on that, because almost 27 years ago, then young Councilman Jones, who had hair on his head, at that time, it was being discussed making that concrete. And at that time, concrete was like 283, I think it was maybe 180 some thousand or 150, somewhere around that. And I thought that was way too much money. I would have that concrete street any day now. But we did South Miles. We did it. And in less than a year, maybe within 8 months, I could start seeing surface cracking all the way across the reams in the streets. So the quality of the asphalt has always been a concern, Mr. Chairman, to me, and the quality of the street. So if it starts to showing that, what are any guarantees that the city comes back and redo the work?
Through the chair to the councilman, right now, if that does happen, our crews do go back out when things like that happen. They do go out and make improvements. So it's not something that hasn't happened. As far as South Miles, I would like to find out who did that. But.
Yes, and I complained about South Miles at the time to the commissioner about the condition of it. Now we got craters in it. It's not even a good 6 years old.
And that's totally understood. Through the chair to the councilman, I think in the case where we want to take it over, I don't know when a contractor's done the street or if we've done the street. As far as the quality of the asphalt, in our contracts that we put out, I believe we submitted that last contract to this body, so you can get an idea what that is. We do have people on staff we've got several layers of people who are actually looking at the quality of the work. So through the chair to the councilman, I think with us taking it over, we're going to have a lot more control over those kind of things.
Okay.
We'll be able to get
You're
to those
taking it
streets.
over?
In streets, that's our goal. That's our goal next year,
Okay.
to be able to take them over.
You're talking about taking all of the streets, doing all the resurfacing?
Through the chair to the councilman, yes.
Okay. And so that is impressive, because before you were at like a 50-50, 60-40 at one point?
As of this year, through the chair to the council, we've taken over more than 50% of it.
You taking more than 50% now?
Yes.
So-
Through the chair to the council,
So,
yes.
so Mr. Chairman, what percentage?
So I can give you an exact number. Through the chair to the councilman, can I get back to you on that? Because
Yeah.
I don't know the exact number.
Okay. And so, Mr. Chairman, taking that over means that we're doing it cheaper, quicker, faster, and better than the actual contractors?
Through the chair to the councilman, that's what we believe. We believe we can do that. Yes.
Okay, great. Do we, Mr. Chairman, because I know that the commissioner talked previously, the director talked previously about us redoing asphalt. You know, actually taking the asphalt, and are we commingling the old asphalt into the new?
Through the chair to the councilman, no, the old asphalt, we typically use that during the wintertime because the asphalt plants aren't open. But during the resurfacing, we use virgin asphalt.
I see. So, Mr. Chairman, then my question would be, in a different subject matter, once you purchase this equipment here that we have here in Ordinance 307, 2024, at $3.9, maybe $4 million at the end of the day, what happens to the old equipment, and how does that work as relates to, and here's the reason why I'm asking the question, Mr. Chairman. We are in, I would say, a rebuild in the city of Cleveland in terms of minority contractors. Unfortunately, this city has not given any contracts to minority contracts. This region has stifled out certain people to certain degrees, and only certain cliques and groups are able to come in and always be the ones getting the contracts. And we haven't, and I hope with this new workforce development system that we put in place, that we will open it and expand it up a market space for Clevelanders and for young entrepreneurs and businesses, especially minority businesses, to be able to purchase equipment that we have here. How do we do that process?
Through the chair to the councilman, most of this equipment that's on this list will be in addition to our current fleet. So at this time, there wouldn't be an opportunity for any contractors to purchase any of our surplus equipment, but we typically offer any surplus equipment from the city of Cleveland through govdeals.com. Okay, and that's
What is it again?
GovDeals. That's an auction site that is specific to government agencies. They list it, and it's an online auction. Anyone can purchase any of that equipment. We list stuff through the Division of Purchasing on there regularly. GovDeals.com.
So is gov.deals.com?
No, GovDeals.
GovDeals, GOVDEALS?
.com.
.com.
Yes.
Gotcha. And you do that?
We list equipment on GovDeals weekly.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm excited about sharing that information.
Absolutely.
And I'm very excited also, Mr. Chairman, to the director about the proposition that you will be taking all of this on the in-house. The only issue that I would have on anything that we do is that it's important to me that we have quality work.
Absolutely. It's important. Through the chair to the councilman, we have the same sentiment. It's important to us as well.
And Mr. Chairman, I have no unreadiness on this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the floor back.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. Is there any other questions on ordinance 307, 2024? Seeing no further questions on 2024. Oh, Councilman Harrison, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no question, just a comment. Well, listen, I'm glad to hear that you all are going to take over all the streets. I've complained about the contractors who did streets in Ward 10 in the past, when not even a year you have buckling in the streets on the edges because the base wasn't repaired like it should have been, right? We don't go after them, during the period that they are supposed to ensure the work that they've done on the streets. I mean, it's a mess. So I'd rather be able to deal with our in-house team than going to deal with these contractors, who bid and going to do this work. Now, it would be one thing if we actually went after them for the shoddy work that they, maybe have done on the streets, but we don't do that, right? I mean, I've had an instance on 105th Street where we had that issue, but the blame was tossed all over the place. I just couldn't spend any more time on it, right? So I'm glad to hear that you all doing the streets. In fact, when you all did a couple of streets, in addition to the resurfacing program for me before, you know what streets are still in good condition?
I would hope through the chair to the councilman's ours.
Absolutely it is. That's right, because it was done correctly, right? So I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Harrison. Next up, we have ordinance number, thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Next up, we have ordinance number 241, 2024, by Councilmember Conwell. This is an emergency ordinance changing the name of Moulton Scoutway Park in Ward 9 to Shirley Chisholm Park. All right, is there anybody here representing this piece of legislation? Councilman Conwell?
No, it's just about it real quick. I want to hold it. I need to finish getting my signatures.
Okay,
And then when I finish with my signatures, then I will
okay,
bring the signatures in
all right, okay.
to support it.
All right, okay, we'll hold ordinance number 241, 2024. All right, thank you, Mr. Councilman Conwell.
Thank you very much. Have a good
All right.
day.
Okay, next up is MOCAP for our presentation.
I didn't submit my list directly yet. I've been sick. So I will have my list submitted, so just put on there that Councilman Jones list he has a list to be submitted for his capital improvement projects.
All right, Director, you want to make an introduction of everybody at the table, please?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having us here today. So I'm James DeRosa, the Director of Capital Projects. To my right is Mark Dulick. He's the Section Chief of Division, Manager of the Division of Architecture and Site Development. Excuse me, Mark. Mark did take the role of Carter Edmond that Carter had before, so Mark was promoted to that position. Previously, he was the manager of the section chief of architecture. To his right is Rick Switowski, the manager of engineering and construction. To his right is Rob Chappelle, who's the section chief of design for roadways. And then to his right is Keisha Chambers, assistant director. And to her right is Jim McKnight, the section chief of site development. So I'll be leading that conversation today. I have staff here for backup if we get into any details of any of the projects that may be presented today. So would you like me to start with the presentation?
Yes, let's please get started.
Okay, so again, thanks for having us here today. This is a little bit different than years in the past because in the past, I believe we would come to you with a piece of legislation. This is a presentation at the request of Councilman Bishop to review with you where we're at in the project selection process and to receive feedback from City Council before we come to you with an ordinance. And I will say that I did receive late on Thursday the list of projects that council members had presented to City Council, but they did come over to us late on Thursday. So that anything that you see included in this presentation is really just by chance because we've been working with you and we understand what your priorities are. But we did not have, we did not receive it in advance enough to include a lot of thinking around the projects, the good projects that we have on this sheet. But we can discuss it during this meeting.
Okay, Director, let me make this comment before we go further. We understand that we got the information over to you at a time where it was hard to incorporate that into the plan. But the flexibility that this council provides at times to the administration when you guys need to push the, when you guys are short on time. We also expect that same leeway to be granted to this council, okay? All right, continue.
Councilman, absolutely, and this is not a final list by any means.
Okay.
So let me start out with that right off the get-go. We are over budget on this particular list. We do have to make some decisions, but that could include swapping out projects. It could include using other funding sources. It could include a lot of things. There's a lot of really good things on the list that City Council presented to us. So with that being said, today I'm going to go through our process. I'm going to go through what bonds can be used for, what type of projects, and I'm going to go through kind of a comparison of where we were at with previous years, and then we're going to go through the project list that you all have in a handout here. So just to start out, a quote from Chief T1, our Chief Operating Officer. This is printed in last year's capital plan, which I'm going to hold up here. This you also have a copy of. This is last year's 3-year capital improvement plan. This is on the city's website under the Department of Finance. And so I just wanted to reference this document here. We will prepare one of these for this year, but this would be after we get through the councilmatic project process and projects are finalized. So there's a quote in that book that says, "The capital improvement project plan is essential to the operations of the city of Cleveland and its residents. The plan prioritizes long-term capital projects and commits funds to ensure the city's public facilities, infrastructure, and equipment are sustainable now and in the future." So this next slide, I think, is really important. It was helpful internally as we talked to other departments and chiefs about what is a capital project and what is an eligible capital project. They really fall into 3 different categories. First is for a new construction, expansion, renovation, or replacement project of an existing facility or facilities, or construction of a new facility. Project costs can include the cost of land, engineering, architectural planning, and contract services needed to complete the project. So you'll see as we go through the project list, a lot of projects fall under this category, basically new or renovations to facilities. Second category is the purchase of major equipment with a useful life of at least 10 years. So an example would be last year we purchased a root pruning machine. So that would be an example of an asset that has a useful life of at least 10 years. And then the third category you see here is major maintenance or rehabilitation project of an existing facility with an economic life of at least 10 years. An example of this might be an HVAC system in a rec center or a boiler in one of our buildings. So our current process is that as projects are determined necessary, each of those projects go to our bond counsel, which are the attorneys who work on the bond issuance, and they determine if those projects are an eligible bond expense. There are times when bond counsel says that it is not an eligible bond expense, and an example of that would be last year we had about $200,000 of capital repairs to the Central Catholic football stadium, which we leased to Central Catholic. We have certain responsibilities under that lease, but bond counsel came back and said, hey, these are really just repairs and maintenance. It does not rise to the level of capital maintenance. And so we as administration had to work to find other funding for that obligation of $200,000 for that stadium. So that would be an example of something where we need to do it, but this is not the right source of funding to do those repairs. So, Councilman, if you will, I'd like to pause here to see if folks have any questions about the type of funding or what is an eligible project, or I can continue, but this might be a nice time to see if there's questions.
Okay, Director, let me try to clear something up for the committee. The handout this spreadsheet that you handed us, the yellow shaded areas what does that signify?
The yellow shaded numbers signify proposed 2024 bond expenditures.
Okay.
Again, we are over budget. All of these will have to be addressed in some fashion, but this is our proposed list, which is currently at 78.5 million.
Okay, so how much is this over budget, Director?
Typically, we bond between 60 to 65.
Okay.
Yep. So an example of another type of funding would be RIT funding. RIT funding is something that you see in the back of this this budget book, but it's not something that's been taken into account yet because we're still working through that process with Department of Finance.
Okay, now, Director, what is the excess valuation of the city? How much can we bond out? I mean, do we have that number?
Yes, sir. So Director of Finance, Chief Director Abanama indicated that 60 to 65 million is what we can bond each year, and that's based upon our capacity to repay that debt.
Okay, so we're going to have to cut probably over $10 million of this list that you proposed here today?
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't say it would be cutting, but yes, we would have to figure out other funding sources.
And the things that's cut would be moved to the 2025 proposed budget, correct?
Yes. Typically, how we work in any year is that we have too many requests from various departments to fund everything. This year we had over 100 million of requests, 120 million, I believe. And so a lot of those items needed to get pushed out into future bond years.
Okay, Director, I want you to respond to this statement that I saw in a previous budget book. And it said that conservatively advised that recent events may limit the city's GO bonding capacity from 2016 to 2030 to an annual range of around $20 million. Have you ever seen that statement before, Director?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I have seen that statement before, and I did ask for clarification on that statement, and I did not receive a clarification to share with you.
Okay, so we actually going to have to get clarification on that because what I'm afraid of is that we are not being conservative in our estimations of borrowing money against for when we go out to bonding. Okay, Director, is there any questions for the Director?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, it's really technically, because I don't, just on the point, because are you finished, Mr. Chairman, to the Director with your presentation, or is it just on the point of funding?
Through the Chairman and the Councilman, questions on what projects are eligible would be welcomed right now, but I do have more of a presentation to give.
Yes.
Okay, so then,
Councilman, could we keep it to the?
I'm going to keep it to what the Director said, right?
Okay,
And I'll hold
okay.
my other questions
Okay.
later, Mr. Chairman. So on the issue of funding, Mr. Chairman, when it comes to the amount of bonding that Mr. Chairman has stated at 20 million, and you got to get clarification on that. The other issue is what other funds are we eligible to use? I know some areas are highlighted in this, and some, well, looks like all of this for this year is highlighted. Is there any other funding sources other than bonding?
Through the Chairman and the Councilman, yes. So I mentioned RIT funding a couple minutes ago.
RIT funding.
RIT funding is something that you'll see in this last year's report. You'll also see earmarks in last year's report, earmarks that we might get from the feds or the state. And then there's also, we won't be diving into this, but there's a lot of information in here about enterprise funds. My presentation does not include port or utilities, but there is, separate funding that comes in through the enterprise funds.
And Mr. Chairman, to the Director, and I'm quite sure if you have probably already looked at this, just a curiosity here. The state has its budget. Do we get money from the state to help us with these kind of projects in our neighborhoods in Cleveland?
Through the chairman, the councilman, we can request earmarks, or you'd say state capital budget allocations. And we typically do request funding, and it's up to the state of Ohio if they wish to grant funding for our projects.
Okay, so we can't get funding from the state. Do we
Yes.
have someone, Mr. Chairman, that works on going after the state dollars? Because I have someone who told me that, well, Cleveland doesn't ask for much. And so other cities are asking for money from the state, and we're not sitting at the table getting those funds.
Through the chairman, the councilman, I can very heartily say that we go after everything we can. We do have an internal team that focuses on grant opportunities, including the state discretionary funds. But we meet on a monthly basis as a team, but we also meet more regularly as grant applications are due. It's a very robust and active, and we're going after everything we can. And I think all of you have heard me say at the table before, we can't build everything we need to without going after every grant that we can.
Mr. Chairman, I will yield the floor. Thank you.
Okay, continue, Director.
Okay, so thank you for those questions. I'm going to go to the next slide, which is just to let you know the bond types that we're speaking of. So the first one is facility bonds. I guess the general statement would be that each type of project requires that the right type of bond is used for that project. So if we go after facility bonds, those can only be spent on public facilities. And so examples would be fire stations, garages, vehicles, and equipment. Equipment does fall under facilities for some reason, but that's an example of facilities. If we have money that we have in the facilities bonds, you can't use those for a rec project. You can't use them for a cemetery project. They must be used for facilities. And the same goes for recreation bonds. Examples would be rec centers, parks, and architectural design services. The third one, which we don't often use, but we do sometimes, are cemetery bonds. So this is a specific type of bond for cemeteries, and this year and next year we do have some proposed cemetery projects. And then the last one you see here are road and bridge bonds. Examples would be roads, bridges, trails, tree planting, not tree removal unless there's a plan to plant, striping that you see on the roadways, engineering services. Those are all eligible for road and bridge bonds. So this year you're going to see facility bonds proposed, recreation bonds, cemetery bonds, and road and bridge bonds. And as I mentioned to Councilman Jones a few minutes ago, we're not going to get into airport, but there are specific airport bonds, and public utilities have their own public utility bonds. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about our process for project selection. We did things a little bit differently this year. And if you look in your capital book from last year, you'll see that we have a committee that reviews project requests, and those entities are listed here. So it's the Director of Finance and his capital project team, meaning capital finance team, the Chief of Integrated Development, the Director of City Planning, CEO Tewin, the Director of Sustainability, and the Director of Capital Projects. So that is the team that reviews funding requests. We look at a few things when we're looking at projects. We look to see if there's a regulatory or legal reason why a project needs to move forward. An example of that would be modifying fire stations to allow for female firefighters. So that's a regulatory and legal requirement that we have. Second one is if we have commitments. So if we have a road and bridge project that's funded by NOACA in a certain year, then we either need to commit those funds for that year, or we have to work with NOACA to push out the project. Third one would be safety and condition. Good examples of safety and condition might be certain improvements that we do at rec centers. But we have a lot of safety and condition projects all around the city in all of our areas of work. And then the last one would be mayoral priorities, based upon, what's been outlined as mayoral priorities. Now, we don't do this in a vacuum, those of us that are in this committee. We, this year, I mentioned we did things a little bit differently, so we sent a request out to all the chiefs and all the directors, which is a new process. I will say that it was a little bit unwieldy to get as many requests in as we did. We're going to make it a little bit more streamlined next year. It is the reason why we're a little bit behind this year, but big picture, it's a good thing to do to reach out to everybody to see what their priorities are. But we received all that information and we processed it into the spreadsheet that we'll go through here in a minute. I would like to say too that we also don't operate in a vacuum with regard to council priorities. I and my staff, as well as Public Works and Public Safety, hear from council members on a regular basis, and we do. A lot of our projects are shaped because of what we hear from council members and from the residents. So the last slide here, or I might have a couple more. This slide shows, it's not the best map, but this slide shows how from 2018 to 2023, all the approved projects are really spread all throughout the city. You see a few dots that are outside of the city. That's because we own land outside of the city that sometimes require improvements like Camp Forbes. And then the darker lines are the ones that are being proposed for 2024. And the colors are between the public facilities, recreation, and roads and bridges. For the purposes of this map, recreation and cemeteries have the same color. But as I mentioned, those are two different bond types. I will say that we have an interactive version of this map that we're working with Urban AI on that will eventually be on our city website. And you can click on all the dots and you could see the year of the project, how much was funded, if it's complete or if it's in progress. But right now you have to have a password to access that. So we're working on making a public version of it that anybody can look at. And anybody in the public could look at on our website. So this slide does a couple things. One is the big chart that you see is how the requested funding for 2024 is broken out between public facilities, rec, and roads and bridges. Again, rec and cemeteries are combined just for the purpose of this. And then what I did was I took the PowerPoint that we had last year, the exact information is what you see up to the top. And then what we're proposing this year is what you see at the bottom. So the 2023 proposal is at the top, 2024 proposal is at the bottom. And you can see that there are some differences, but so we have a little bit more in recreation facilities that we're proposing. Cemeteries are brand new this year compared to last year, although we've done it in the past. Public facilities is about the same, a little bit less. And then road and bridges are quite a bit more. And that's really where most of our focus of looking at other funding sources will come in. There's a couple reasons for that. One is that we have a lot of transformational projects that are coming to fruition. And these are big projects like Lee Road, like the Superior Midway, like the Lorraine Midway, East 66th Street, that require a lot of design money and it requires a lot of construction money. And those projects are starting to come into design and construction, and it requires additional money in our program. Another thing is we're trying to really focus on the tree damage sidewalk recovery program. Everyone here at the table understands that we're woefully behind in that program. Council gave a allocation of $3-some million towards that recovery program. We're putting in another $4 million this year towards that program, but that's a $4 million that we didn't have to allocate last year. And finally, there's $7 million towards the residential resurfacing program in this year's capital bond program. The total budget is $12 million. We like to get as much as we can from other sources to fund that program. Last year, we only funded $1.7 million out of the capital bonds. This year, we're funding $7 million. So, 1.7 to $7 million, that's a big increase just for that line item too. So just to give you a picture of why road and bridges are so high, it's not necessarily that we over-programmed as much as we just have a lot of good projects and some catch-up that we're trying to do with this year's allocation. You will note that I do have the asterisk there, like I said before, that we are working with finance on other sources of funding, because we do have to drop that down to 60 to 65 million.
Okay, Director, can you touch on, when you talk about road and bridges, and we got quite a bit of jump in road and bridges, we allocated $30 million for the back to basics the ARPA funding. Can you speak about that and how much money how much have we spent of that $30 million and how much is left and why?
Yep. So that good timing. That's our next slide here.
Okay.
So we were really thankful that the council supported the Back to Basics program. It was $30 million over these types of projects. So 16.75 is for roadway projects. We worked with council members to get a list of streets that we all agreed upon. 7 of the wards, there may be a street in those wards that maybe didn't get done because they might have been a brick street or whatnot, but 7 of those wards got done last year. 10 of those wards are getting done this year. We did start milling streets right after the eclipse, so we are working on getting those streets done before July 1st. That's our goal, and that is separate from the residential resurfacing program. There's $3.5 million for traffic calming, and Callie Mersman and city planning and traffic engineering are working on where those locations will be and when they will be installed this year. There's $8.175 million in playgrounds. There's 1 in each ward. We have started in almost all of those wards, if not all. Well, not all of them, but in almost all those wards, you'll at least see some earthwork happening. We had a good winter, so Jim and his team were able to get started over the winter time with some of the site work and concrete. And then finally, we have $1.575 million for basketball courts. This is at 5 rec centers and 1 park, and the goal here is that we did an assessment of all the rec centers to figure out which basketball courts needed resurfaced so that rec could have an inter-rec center, Division of Recreation could have an inter-rec center intramural league for basketball. And so that work will also be done by July 1st. All this work should be done, fingers crossed, by July 1st.
Okay. All right, Director, in our meeting just a few days ago, you had over $7 million of decertified funds that was carried forward from 2023. Where are those funds? Where did that funds go?
So they all went under 2024 because finance advised me that I hadn't worked with them closely enough to confirm that those were appropriate decerts.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So I have 16 questions I've written down, but I know that we don't have time for all of my 16 questions.
You could ask all 16.
I probably only asked about 5 or 6 already. But I'm going to go to my colleagues because I want them to get some questions because we do have a tight time schedule here. So first I'm going to go to Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. In the proposed budget, can you just speak a little bit, Director, on public safety and the buildings, more specifically the police, the 5 police districts. I don't see anything specific in here for any of them, and we know that they all need help.
Through the chairman and the councilman, we do know that they need help. There are a few line items in here that specifically relate to public safety, but not individual buildings. So each year, they have a roof and exterior program, which we allocate $1 million towards. And you'll see that as line 15. What we did here is each project has a number next to it, so I can refer to that number, and you can see that in the far left corner. But item number 15 is a $1 million yearly program for roofs and exterior. Number 16 is a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing program. And so those two are for, citywide improvements as identified by public safety. And we work with, Mr. Larson and his team to identify what those needs are and then work with them on executing those projects. There's also this public safety site improvement program, which is kind of small this year, but a little bit of funding for that as well. So that would be drive aprons and things like that. That would be more site like ground-specific site improvements. But there's not a lot of individual police stations identified on here, with the exception of some funding for the police headquarters, which if you look in last year's budget book, there was a $6 million allocation for the police headquarters. This is line 14, and that's for the security, the fixtures, and the equipment that is the city's responsibility. There's certain things that are city's responsibility and not the developers. And we split that between $4 million in this year and $2 million next year for that $6 million.
All right, thank you. And since you're going to refer to as numbers, I'd like to go to 67 through 69. The crack ceiling, 50/50, and street repair, we've zeroed out. For 2024, does that mean we're not going to have the 50/50 sidewalk program or crack ceiling?
Through the chairman and the councilman, so we did that because we have a balance from previous years, and we were able to move forward with our regular crack ceiling 50/50 program with that balance without allocating additional bond funds.
Okay. Can you let us know the number that's there for?
The balance?
Yeah,
Yep.
for 2024, if you don't mind. And
Yes.
then I noticed, Mr. Chairman, to the director, that you mentioned the mayor's priorities. I know that council was asked about priorities in their wards. Did any of those priorities make the list, Mr. Chairman, to the director? And I know what I submitted, but I don't know what my other 16 colleagues submitted. But I'm wondering just if any of the priorities from council made the list.
Through the chairman and the councilman, so we are working to review that list now. The items that are on this spreadsheet are items that we had already discussed with council members. They didn't come from this list specifically, but I will take this moment to say that I see some trends, I guess, if you will, with what council overall is requesting. One thing that I see loud and clear is that there's a lot of requests for rec center parking lots. I also see a lot of requests for security cameras. And I will say that security cameras writ large are not something that we typically have a program for, but it makes me think that both rec center parking lots and security cameras, we need to think about how to have a program to roll that out throughout the city. There are a lot of individual roadways on this list that we're going to have to look to see if they qualify for residential resurfacing, if it's one of the mains that we would have other funding to come in for. So we'll have to analyze all those roadways. And then there's a lot of park improvements and rec center improvements related to specific wards. I will say that we are finishing up the Park and Rec Master Plan towards the end of this summer, and there should be plenty of time to vet recommendations with City Council before anything is final. And that's one reason why you see very few specific parks listed in this proposed capital plan, besides what was already in the book, what was already, if you will, promised in last year's book.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Councilman Casey. Next, I'm going to go to Councilwoman Santana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's on the list, okay. This list is overwhelming. So through the chair to the director, I'm curious to know, how long does it take for you guys to come up with a scope? Is this something that was done this year, or are these projects in the pipeline for several years?
Through the chairman of the councilman, that is a great question. It's hard for us to move quickly to receive a new project and put it into this plan quickly, because we need to first have our team look at what that request is and really do a good evaluation of the facility or item that's being requested, get a good cost estimate, and look to see if other funding could be allocated for that purpose. And usually it takes about a year to go from an idea to put it into the capital plan. So short answer is it takes about a year. Then once the money is budgeted, we need some time for design. Depends on the project. If it's something like an HVAC system, that's going to take longer than something more finite like a sign that needs to go up. And then we go into construction.
Got it, thank you. And through the chair to the director, I guess I'm asking that question because when I read under the description, under scope, it seems everything's preliminary, right? Like there's just assessment that you have to do. So without that assessment, I'm curious to know, how do you just come up with that budget? And on that note, could it be that we are overestimating at some point for these projects?
Through the chairman of the councilman, so on the last point about overestimating, I will say that our original estimate does include a contingency, usually of 20%. As we get the design done, that contingency goes down to 10%. But that's why at the end of a project, we do often have money that Councilman Bishop referenced as decertified funds, because we do want to make sure that we can complete the project with the funds that we have. And so there is a contingency that if things go well, can get freed up for another project of a like kind. So if it's a facility, it has to go into another facility. If it's rec, into rec, and so forth.
Got it. Other question I have is MOCAP. You said that they have their assigned projects. Do you guys work with MOCAP to align what the city projects are, or do they pick their projects and then they tell the city, this is what I want you to align your capital projects with?
We as, through the chairman of the councilman, we as MOCAP work with other departments as our clients, if you will. So I would say the only thing that is our, our work solely might be some of the larger roadways, because Public Works doesn't handle the very large roadways.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're working, for instance, on a recreation center, then we're working with Public Works. If we're working on a fire station, we're working with Public Safety. So I'm not sure if I understood your question as much as we're kind of the engineers and architects that facilitate the needs of the city, and we do the work for other departments so that their facilities can be safe and responsive to community needs.
Got it. I guess I'm going back to your comment where you talked about MOCAP submits a project, and then when they submit our project, the city is responsible to allocating also some funding for that project, for that gap. I think you mentioned something.
Well,
Did I understand?
Through the chairman of the councilman, so the only money that we have to spend comes from capital bonds.
Mm.
So we get very little through the operating budget process, and usually that's just for staffing and computer software and things like that. So most of our funding, any project that we do, is going to come from capital bonds. So we pitch projects, but ultimately both the administration and city council have to agree to the funding source in order for us to carry through with those projects.
Got it. And then my last question is, how do you end up prioritizing these projects? Considering we don't have council's projects on the list, right? Let's say they're important and they're probably bumping some off. How do you know which ones are important and will go first and so forth?
Through the chairman and the councilman, it's really tough. There's a lot of really good projects that we need to bump out into future years. And it's kind of, the slide that we showed you with the prioritization, the 4 items in the middle, to be honest, we rarely even get down to a mayor's priority that doesn't also have a regulatory legal commitment or something that goes with it. So we really, that's kind of how we, look at our prioritization, but there's a lot of projects that get pushed out to future years. And to be honest, there's a lot of work that you're seeing now that's related to public works as facilities. So not rec centers, but actual facilities that people work out of, garages and whatnot, that's been deferred for so long that we really need to start spending and addressing in these couple years.
Good, thank you. And I do have one more question. I was just in a conversation with someone that lived in Columbus, and it seems like the state allocates funding for them for their infrastructure, and they get a lot of money. Do you feel like we do a good job in meeting with those elected officials in our state and and advocating for funding here? I mean, are they going down on their funding, or is it increasing? How could we improve that process if need be?
Through the chairman and the councilwoman, it's a great question. I'm not sure I have the answer to you. I don't know what the trends are, but I can tell you that Chief Puente is very active with our lobbyists to try to get the attention of the State House and also the federal government to try to get as much as we can. But I'm sure we would love to continue that conversation with you because we do need as much outside money as we can to move forward with these projects.
Do we get a map of like how much is allocated in different cities throughout our state and how we compare?
To the councilwoman, I don't know, but I can ask that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Santana. Next, I'm going to go to Councilman Mike Polensek, and we're going to come back to Joe Jones and Anthony Harrison and Jenny Spencer. Okay, Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the director and the folks that are here at the table. First of all, I want to thank. I think the director has taken a more engaged process and is talking to council members and listening in a way that has not happened in the past.
That's correct.
So I appreciate that, because I think the former director had a personality of a rock, quite
Yes, he
frankly.
did. Crazy.
And that's being polite. And I don't think he cared much about the thoughts and concerns of council members. So I'm glad with Director DeRosa that he's listened, he's engaged, et cetera. But when I look at this document, I see that there are enterprise funds in here as well. So, enterprise department. So why don't we separate the enterprise departments out? Because they have to do their own bonding. They have to do their own capital. So I think it would be a lot easier to separate the enterprise accounts out of here, so we could get a better picture as it pertains to general fund. That's just a suggestion through the chair.
That makes sense.
Can I ask a question? Through the chairman and the councilman, these are all general fund. They might relate to a utility, but if you could suggest one.
Okay, like
example.
Harvard Yard. That's water, is it not?
Through the chairman and councilman, I believe it's water, but also bridges and docks. There's some,
Okay.
There's some other public fund.
But I would
activities.
respectfully request that you go through this again. If there's something
Okay.
from enterprise accounts that need to be separated out. And let me just run down here quickly, because I know we have a lot of things going on today. The police headquarters. This is what concerns me. When it came before us, and I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it was around $90 million, correct?
Correct.
Now I'm hearing that there were certain things that allegedly were not a part of that contract. What? Nobody told us at the table. And I'm not putting that on you, because you weren't the point guy, it was the rock guy, okay? But the fact of the matter is, wait a minute, 90 million, and now we're hearing that this wasn't it, this wasn't, what's the deal there?
So through the chairman and the councilman, so I don't know what was presented to the council. I do remember it was 90 million max, but that's our guaranteed maximum price with the developer. But just like any type of situation where you have a developer building for a user, there are certain things that don't fall on the developer's tab.
Okay.
And I don't know when this, or if not, had been discussed with council, but we did specify 6 million in last year's budget book towards those below the line costs. And some of those things are because we want to be proprietary about our security systems. And there are, so typically the developer includes from the plugs inward, but anything any AV equipment, any monitors, anything like that, all gets added separately. So that's what that total 6 million is, which we split between 4 and 2.
Okay, so you're telling us today you think 6 million is going to it. We're not going to come back for some additional money, because we'll be approaching $100 million on that police headquarters.
Through the chairman and the councilman, with consultants and whatnot, yes. So we think the 6 million is what's needed, and the project has a long ways to go.
Okay. So I'm going to bird dog that through safety. That's been a big expenditure, and I say that because we're spending all that money, and then as my colleagues have indicated, we have the neighborhood districts. They're in deplorable condition.
Right.
I mean, the 5th District is an embarrassment as far as I'm concerned, police headquarters. And I hear it from my other colleagues as well, the condition of the neighborhood district houses. The citywide general fund vehicles, if you could provide us where you're recommending those vehicles. There's been a lot of controversy lately as to who's driving city vehicles, what the policy is, who has insurance, who doesn't have insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So I will tell you that all of us around the table here, we're going to be raising more questions as to where vehicles are going, who's assigned vehicles, and what's the city's internal actions to guarantee that people who are driving city vehicles have insurance. So I'm just giving you forewarnings of that. That's coming. The upgrade of the mobile command bus under public safety.
Mm-hmm.
That bus is relatively new. What are we putting $350,000 in? $350,000 into that?
Through the chairman and the councilman, I cannot give you that answer today, but I can get that for you. It was one of the top priorities for public safety, but I don't have the details of what exactly is going to get upgraded.
Well, you need to tell us, somebody needs to tell us, because, I mean, again, here's a relatively new vehicle we bought, and I'd like to know what's going in there, or what the 350 is going for. And then, I guess, in general, to tie into what some of my other colleagues have asked, the legislation that is before us, is it covering the 3 years or just the first year?
So through the chairman and the councilman, so unlike previous years, there's no legislation before you.
Okay.
So this is just a discussion.
Well, I know that we're having a discussion, but I didn't know if legislation was going to come in to follow.
There will be legislation, and when you do get the legislation, it'll just be for 1 year.
Just
for 2024.
Okay, so the future for 2025 and 2026, we'll have future discussions on those.
Through the chairman and the councilman, yes, but in the past, we were critiqued by not sharing that with council in advance, so that's why we're here today.
So the 50, and that was the legitimate concern of the chair of this committee, and I appreciate the chair's aggressiveness and proactivity on this. And then the other last question I have on the 50/50 sidewalk program. So you're recommending nothing this year for 2024?
Through the chairman and the councilman, yes, but the reason why is because we have a balance from previous years.
What is that balance? Do we know?
I can get that for you.
Okay.
Yep.
And we've heard the complaints of those of us about the 50/50 program. Who's in charge of that 50/50 program?
Through the chairman and the councilman, so the 50/50 program is currently split between 2 departments. So Mayor's Office of Capital Projects, interacts with the residents, gets the request, goes out, gives an estimate, puts out the written letter.
Yeah.
If they choose to go through the program, then the Division of Streets is the entity who actually moves forward with the construction work.
But, Mr. Chairman, why wouldn't it just be under control of one department?
Through the chairman and the councilman, so the last requirements contract that we received in 2022, a 2-year contract, the cost for concrete was very high. And so we worked out a relationship with Division of Streets to lower the cost so that residents could afford to participate.
Okay.
So that's why it's split between 2 departments. Our goal is not to keep it with Division of Streets permanently because they do have lots of other brickwork that needs to be done throughout the
Okay.
system, or concrete work, excuse me.
But isn't that, in my opinion, that's not cost effective to have it split. It should be under just one department, Mr. Chairman. The 50, as I walk streets, as I walk neighborhoods, as I walk my own development that I'm in, and I look at the conditions of the sidewalks, and then I just went around, as you're aware, with your folks in law, with all these sidewalks that are lifted with trees, the trees that were planted by the city, and the law department came back and said, Councilman, it's the homeowner's responsibility. Even though that's a city tree and it's lifted, but I've had residents call me and say, Councilman, I've had my sidewalks replaced once already, and now here I am the second time have to lift, my sidewalks are lifted because of the city trees. And I'm not advocating taking down the city trees because obviously we need more trees planted.
Right.
But when they didn't plant the right trees in the first
That's right.
first shot at it, and then secondly, on some tree lawns are so narrow, it only created a bigger problem for the homeowner and then ultimately the city. So, Mr. Chairman, again, I'm going to say to the administration, we need to come up with a better sidewalk program. You look at, we've got elderly folks, we've got people on walkers, we've got people on wheelchairs, we've got kids, and when you look at the conditions of some of these sidewalks, I mean, I actually have some sections of my ward where the people just took the sidewalks out and just, they threw gravel in there because they were done with trying to repair their sidewalks, and that's not the answer either. So,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, again, I want to thank you and members of this committee, because I'm not a member of this committee, but these capital projects, and I want to just say this because other councilmen have brought it up and will bring it up. There's got to be a better integration with the council concerns and complaints with the administration. This has to be a partnership. I can't stress that enough. Because historically, stop right here. We do well, in my opinion, of building things, but we don't do well at fixing and repairing things.
Yep.
And I see it all over. I look at the Collinwood Rec Center, 10 years old. I look at the issues already that need to be repaired. We've got to figure out, not the council, but the administration, through the Commissioner Nagel's operation, we got to figure out how to fix stuff around here and repair things like we did once in a day. I never had to worry about getting stuff fixed. Now I got to beg, Mr. Chairman, to get stuff fixed and painted or repaired. And so it's just like your own home. It's that old, you either pay now or you pay later. You fix it or you have bigger problems later on. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm here to work with you and my colleagues on this capital plan, but doggone it, we have got to come up with a better maintenance and repair program in this city, because all we do, we wait till the roof is gone or leaking before we fix it. And we've got to do stuff in a more proactive manner here. That's my own opinion, being here as long as I have been. So I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Polensek. We appreciate your historical perspective. Next, I'm going to go to Councilman Jones.
Mr. Chairman, I want to also echo the same sentiment that my colleague Mike Polensek echoed here a moment ago about Mr. DeRosa being a little bit more engaging, in fact, way more engaging than the previous chairman, the previous director that held that seat. and the department was kind of cold and frosty, and you couldn't get anything done, and you couldn't get the kind of response you needed. It was like bumping up against a steel door, and with no personality at all. And it was horrible my first 4 years sitting here at the table dealing with an administration that did not want to actually deal with some of the major issues in my neighborhood, which are roads, repair work, and being actually stonewalled for 4 years in terms of improvements or engaging in the process of facilities upgrades or improvements, as well as the design and remodeling of our new recreational facility. It was horrible sitting on the sideline and trying to constantly jump in to get something done or to make the kind of changes that are necessary. First, let me start by saying, Mr. Chairman, this is a lot of money that's sitting in front of us right now. I am concerned, Mr. Chairman, of, I think Mike Polensek touched on some of it, and my colleague Jasmine Santana talked about funds and where to get other funding sources. Who is the committee, and how many people are working with you and your department, Mr. Chairman, to Director, that really works on the proposition of going out and getting funding? And here's the reason why I'm asking that question, Mr. Chairman. I think that in those areas where we have good, competent, capable people, I don't know how many, I think we should invest more into that side of it so that we can get more bang for the buck in terms of bringing resources into the city. So how big is your department as it relates to going after those funds, whether it be on a county level, in terms of NOACA, or county government, in terms of the county council, in terms of the state, going after the funds and resources that they have allocated for various different improvement projects? And then, of course, we know that the President of the United States, Joe Biden, has passed the infrastructure program. How do we go after that? Can you kind of like help us see how that works in this whole proposition that you have before us today?
So through the chairman and the councilman, so there's a couple levels of staff that would work on different types of funding requests. So when you reference the federal funding, we mentioned a little bit ago the state capital funding, those a higher level that include Chief Puente, it includes myself, the Director of Planning, Senior Strategist Mersman. I have a staff member that's focused on the federal grant application process. It also includes Senior Strategist Trevisano. And so we meet on a regular basis, and we also work through NOACA on regional coordination for these large grants so that we're not competing against ourselves. But that's the group with some staff members that really focus on the bigger grants, the bigger asks, the requests for proposals that come in from the federal government. And then aside from that, we have kind of our bread and butter, if you will, grant applications that are due each year. We have applications that go to the state of Ohio for, it's called Issue 1 money through DOPWIC. We have applications that go into NOACA. We have applications that go into the county, and that would be Rick Swiatowski and Rob Chappelle that really focus on, and Aaron O'Neill, on what projects are most eligible that hit the sweet spot of those other grant applications. And those don't necessarily rise to the Chief Puente level, but that's something that we do on a yearly basis. And then depending on the federal or state grant, then we'll bring in other staff members with a specialty to be able to address the technical information that needs to go into that grant application.
The reason why I asked, so you have a team that deals with the federal level, the state level, and the county level.
Yes, sir.
And is that team that you just stated, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Through the chairman of the councilman, yes, those are the folks that I mentioned to you.
So is there, like, for an example, Mr. Chairman, so I can have an understanding of how this works, is there like a board of funding that's on the federal, the state, and the county that comes out and say, hey, we have these monies available, hey, cities, apply for them?
Through the chairman of the councilman, yes. So there are different levels of notifications. So the federal notifications are NOFOs that come out as they publish them in advance to say on this date, there's going to be a notice of federal funding for this particular grant opportunity with a very brief description of what it would be. And then you have to watch for that to come out. We do have input from ODOT, for instance, that highlights for us when there's a NOFO related to a federal road program or bridge program. NOACA also notifies us when an appropriate NOFO comes out. But so that's sort of the federal level. The state allocation, we're typically notified through Chief Puente, through our lobbyists. And then for what I call the bread and butter kind of programs, we're notified directly by the county to say, hey, we're going to have our 50/50 concrete repair program again this year. Please submit your projects by such and such date. The same with NOACA. They'll give us a heads up in advance to say, hey, by this date, we're going to be looking at the next 3-year tip. And so that would be, or 4-year tip. So that would be sort of a different rhythm, if you will. Those are our regular programs that we go after every year. DOPWIC applications, those are due late summer every year.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I won't beat that a little bit up. The other questions I have concerning that, I'll talk to you offline on it. But I think that is something that is of interest for me as relates to bringing in funds to deal with this here. My colleague talked about maintenance and repair. And he talked about, and I'm going to be just touching a little bit some of those areas that he's already touched on to ask a little bit more deeper dive. When it comes to the repair, the sidewalks with the trees that are uplifted, the streets that have been repaved, I know we're behind on that. How far are we behind on that? And then what's causing us to be behind on it?
Through the chairman and the councilman, so we have we've done, I'm going to call it TDS. We've done the TDS program, tree damage sidewalks, through part of 2020. But we have part of 2020, we have 21, 22, 23 that haven't been addressed. Our goal is to do it the same year, if not the next year, if we can't make the same year. But we have 2 things happening that you'll see here in the spreadsheet. We have 1.2 million proposed for the ongoing tree damage sidewalk program. So the 1.2 you see in here is for the 2024 tree damage sidewalk program.
Which page is that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, let me give you the number here. So that would be Mr. Councilman, if you look at item 65, and they're all numbered individually in the far left corner, left side. Number 65.
Okay.
So through the chairman and the councilman, so that's one piece of the puzzle, is to keep up with current resurfacing projects. So if you look at the line below it, which is number 66, we call this one the Tree Damage Sidewalk Recovery Program. And if I could just explain for a minute how we intend to catch up with the 2020 through 2023 years. We are currently going through an inspection process, because as you can imagine, if you don't address a tree damaged sidewalk in 2020 or 2021, then the trees may impact even more panels going forward. So we're in the process of inspecting all the residential resurfacing streets that didn't get a tree damaged sidewalk improvement, and identifying exact locations that need to be serviced. Then what we're going to do is we're going to package all of those locations, and we're going to put them out to bid as a capital project. instead of putting it through our requirements contract. And what we hope that's going to do is it's going to provide better pricing because it's going to give the contractor exact locations so they know exactly what they're bidding on. And so we do not expect to be able to do all of that work for the $4 million that you see under line 66. But you'll see that we have $4 million, $4 million, $5 million, depending on how, spread out throughout the 3 years to catch up. Depending on how the pricing comes in, that'll tell us how much we can do with this $4 million. Plus, council allocated $3-point-some million. So we have about $8-point-some million to work with to do that initial catch-up.
And one of the things that I got to ask, before when we were doing this program, we were doing it all in-house. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman, to the director? Or was this contracted out?
Yeah, through the chairman and the councilman, this is contracted out. The last time we did requirements contracts in 2022, we had 2 requirements contracts, one for the east side, one for the west side for the tree damage sidewalk program. But the costs were so high under that concrete requirements contract that we're not able to do as much work as we need to keep up with the work that needs to be done.
I see. And so doing it this way, breaking it down, you figure you could get a better pricing based upon the way it was done before. And the way it was done before, just so I can get a grasp of this, Mr. Chairman, to the director, was it just 2 separate big giant contractors doing this work?
Through the chairman and the councilman, yes. So we had the same contractor actually won the bid for both contracts. But what would happen is, as you as a councilman identified your Ward 1 residential resurfacing streets, then we would give those streets to that requirements contractor. We would go through an inspection process and they would identify the work that needs to be done on those streets. But essentially, when they gave us their price for that requirements contract, they didn't really know if we would have a lot or little, this side, that side, how much work might be done. So by giving them certainty, we're hoping that we get better pricing and we can catch up.
I see. And then, Mr. Chairman, just because this is important, this issue here, because we got a number of streets in my neighborhood that need to get done. I know I've had a lot of people who've been saying, hey, when are you going to come take care of my sidewalk and the conditions of it? Who, by the way, Mr. Chairman, was the contractor?
To the chair, to the councilman, the current contract is held by PERC, I believe it is.
Who?
PERC Construction.
PERC Construction was the contractor that was doing the work?
Tree damage sidewalk, yes, sir.
And so they were doing both sides. Now, before PERC, because my understanding, Mr. Chairman, in previous administration, that they were caught up or catching up, and were they working? Was it PERC the contractor before we actually got this contract, or who was doing it before?
To the chair, to the council member, if my memory serves correctly, the prior requirements contract that had tree damage sidewalk, the contractor defaulted. Another contractor was brought in, and that was Terrace, I believe, came in to take that over for Utilicon. And we had some contract disputes over pricing that stalled the work, never really got going.
I see. So, Mr. Chairman, I see my time is up.
Yeah,
So,
Councilman Jones, can you come back until you're on the list? We'll put you
yes,
back on the
Mr.
list.
Chairman.
Okay. All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. I'm going to go next to Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that we are behind with a noon caucus meeting today, so I will try to be succinct with my comments. I think this has already been stated, but I'm really disappointed that council's priorities were not integrated into this list, and I understand that it's because we got those items to MOCAP very late. So my question would be, what is our deadline? When should council be getting our priorities? Because there are some urgent items on my list that are not on this list even 3 years out. So I'm very concerned. So my question would be, how did we get to this place, and how do we fix it through the chair?
So through the chair, the councilwoman, thank you for that question. And one thing I think Councilwoman Santana asked that I don't think I answered. Somebody asked, but we internally meet on a quarterly basis about the capital improvement plan. So we We receive requests at any time of the year, and we sort of triage them, if you will, meaning maybe there's something that it's an immediate need that Public Works needs to address immediately for a safety issue. Maybe there are things that we have to schedule out as a bigger capital project. But to answer your question, the best time to submit your list of projects would be in the fall of each year. And so this was great, and I welcome this list because it really helps guide us, the list that you guys submitted. But I would just say that to really be helpful to us, the fall is when we start putting together the capital plan to present to the chiefs and the mayor. So it takes about this long to actually get to this result. So it's definitely not a quick process, and because there's so many requests, that's kind of why it takes so long. I would say that we welcome your input at any time, but to be most impactful, the fall is when we're really starting to dig into, because we finalize a draft of it around the end of the year, around the end of the previous year.
So through the chair, if there is an item that was submitted on the council side that is not on the list, and I'm just thinking of one clear example in my ward that is a priority and time sensitive, is there room for that conversation at this point? And I would ask that there be room for that conversation, but how would council members proceed with that conversation?
Through the chairman and the councilman, I would say that it would be helpful. We will review this expeditiously, and we will at least make a determination if, I guess, looking back at the priorities, we're going to have to look at those priorities to see if there's, regulatory legal commitments or a safety and condition issue. And those are the projects that would rise to the top. I will say that there are a lot of park and rec center improvements that may not make the cut this year because we have the mass rec and, the park and rec master plan that's underway. But we're going to really dig into both, all of the other things that are on this list, all of them, and we can at least give some kind of feedback back to the council members.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to be on the record that I would not have comfort voting to approve any of these pieces that will be coming forward legislatively without a little more closing the loop on what the director just stated, to make sure that council and the administration are on the same page. Because I don't think that the actual pieces delineate the projects. This is the shared understanding that's established prior to legislation, which is very important. So wanted to state that. I also will say that it's interesting looking back on what council submitted. I did not actually include parks and recreation properties on my list because of the separate and parallel park planning process. So yep. I think in the future I probably would include everything, just better to over-include than under-include. But I think part of what I submitted did reflect the acknowledgement that there is a master planning process underway. I did, though, have a question about division of fire facilities. It is my understanding that there has been a long-established list of capital needs, and I had understood my fire station in Ward 15 to be that it would have been on a list over the next 3-year period. I thought there was a separate process already set up as it related to division of fire's capital needs. So through the chair, wanting to confirm that, because I do not see Station 23 on this list.
So through the chairman and the councilwoman, I'm going to hand this over to Mark. And what we have is last year we approved $500,000 for a fire station modernization plan. And so Mark could just give a couple minutes of what that plan would entail. But that's one reason why you don't see individual fire stations listed here.
Okay.
Through the chairman to the councilwoman, thank you for that question. This master plan is a chance to really look at the overall modernization of all of our fire stations citywide. Of course, it involves a technical process that's really driven by response times, but to date, the priority for any improvements has been to be able to accommodate the growing number of female firefighters that our stations need to accommodate. We're on the third phase of that. It's out to bid as we speak, so that's what we've prioritized. 23 specifically, we did the roof very recently. So the plan has to use the same kind of prioritization process that my director has outlined for any capital projects. It has to do with safety first and things like that. So a lot of that has been and is funded through those sort of general topics listed here in this current capital plan, whether it's mechanical or whether it's roofs. And then, of course, there's a lot of equipment, which in a lot of cases gets the priority so that the firefighters can do their job. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. So through the chair, there is a fire station modernization plan underway. The planning process is underway?
Yes, we're sending the RFP out probably the end of this week.
Okay.
And we'll hire a consultant with a lot of expertise in firefighting facilities to help us prioritize not only which ones need to be replaced. We've already done a preliminary in-house plan, just so everybody knows, working very closely with fire and with public safety to see which ones can be renovated. If you get a chance and you're out on Kinsman Road and have a chance to look at the new Fire Station 26, that station does embody the modern safety standards. It's kind of a current best practices embodied in that station, and that's what we're using as our guide for this master plan is how do we either renovate or replace or in some ways improve our stock of fire stations, get them up to those standards of providing the best safe environment we can for our firefighters.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure referring back to an earlier comment regarding security cameras, just wanting to make sure that process is clear. I think a number of council members had questions about security cameras through the chair.
Yeah, through the chair, the councilwoman, we often hear about requests for security cameras, but I have to say that this is the first time in black and white that I've seen so many requests, so many consistent, if you will, requests for security cameras. So I know that Mark works with the team at Public Safety whenever we have a capital project that relates to a full park restoration or exterior of a rec center, but we need to sit down with Public Safety and talk about what does a security camera program look like and how to phase it and how to budget for it. So I don't have a short answer for you right now, except to say that we need to sit down with Public Safety to see how to put a program like that into place.
Okay. And then my last comment through our chair, I'll just say I look forward to reviewing this list more in detail. I think it would be helpful to break it out by ward, to have ward listed, just so at a glance we have a sense of distribution. It's really difficult to know on the list where this is geographically distributed throughout the city, knowing that it doesn't have, the criteria it doesn't have to be equal per ward, but just to give council members a sense of whether investments are being made in their ward would be very helpful. But also, there are, to me, a couple surprises in here, and I'll just point out one. Surprised to see $15 million a year for vehicles. We made a huge investment in vehicles through ARPA for public safety, and I know this is a blend of public works and public safety. $15 million a year for vehicles, only $1.5 million a year for parks capital maintenance. So that's just an example of one thing that stood out at me. It surprised me about the list. So look forward to further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Spencer. I want to note that in the presentation last year on the capital's budget, they put $18 million in for vehicles last year, and this year was $15 million. Next, I'm going to go to Councilman Anthony Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we were pressed on time to get to caucus, but a couple of things. I echo Councilwoman Spencer. I'm not inclined to vote for this if council priorities are not included in this project. None of this happens unless we say yes to it, right? So I don't know why we keep asking whether our priorities should be included on this list, except for making them a part of this list. I mean, that's just simple to me, Mr. Chair. Also, I need to talk to the clerk because once the actual ordinances come, they are supposed to come to DPS as well, or unless we have a joint meeting. I know we talked about that last year, so I agree with Councilwoman Spencer. Our requests are not hard requests. We just need to figure out how to get those done, right? I'm confident that, between administration and council, that whatever it is that we jointly want to see happen in the neighborhood, that we can figure that out. You all don't get everything you want. We don't get everything we want. We compromise and we meet in the middle to decide what it is that we want to put forward to support our neighborhood. So make sure we put that on record. Secondly, Mr. Chair, to the director, I was looking at your facilities list here that you gave us. I don't see the Glenville Yard on here. I know we talked about the Glenville Yard before because it's odd that the frontage of the yard on 110th Street, right where our beautiful park is, looks terrible. Overgrowth, I don't know, whatever that kind of brick wall that is kind of crumbling. It just looks a mess there. The salt dome I know was under repair at some point, or was supposed to be. But the back end off of Lure looks amazing. Nice, beautiful doors that you pulled out. Nobody sees the back, right? And Lure is a mess as well as you get to the back area. But I don't understand that the front of the building where you can see and residents live and the park, it looks bad, but then the rear where no one can see it except a little piece from the highway of 90, it's in great condition. Are we going to address the Glenville station, Mr. Chair, to the director?
Through the chairman and the councilman, so I don't know if, Mark, if you're the best one to address. I know that we're working on the salt dome, like you mentioned.
Right.
That was allocated last year. We've learned that salt domes cost a whole lot more than what we thought they would cost. So we had to put additional money into that project to make it work. But I think that the Glenville Yard is something we need to take a look at because I don't think it's currently something that we've focused on, except for, there was the pool that was removed. Isn't that right adjacent to that? Or is
Right,
that,
it is.
Yeah, so there's been some individual improvements, but not a comprehensive plan. So I'll have to talk to our team and take a look at the Glenville Yard.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to your response on that. Yes, adjacent to the Glenville Yard where the old pool was, we poured out and built a new park across the street there at the old Forest Hill School site. And even just where we took the pool out, just the overgrowth. So that's Public Works that we need to talk with. I know they was trying to, this natural growth that they were trying to achieve there. But you can't do that right there. That it needs to be cut down, right? So I'll deal with Public Works with that. But yeah, that next door, we need to really look seriously at the front of that Glenville Yard. It just looks, it looks horrible there from the street. I had residents actually who live up on Hazeldale. She's a green thumb. She said, "Listen, Councilman, I'll cut it down. I'll fix the front up. I mean, if I don't get in trouble, I just want to make it look better because it looks bad, So I had residents who were willing to volunteer collectively, walk down Hazeldale with their bags and rakes and tree cutters to clean that front up, and even try to find someone to rebuild the wall for us, or just kind of make it look nice. So, hope we look at that. And as Councilman Pelosi stated, the 5th District, I mean, it's just bad shape. I mean, it's old. It looks horrible. So 5th District is absolutely something that we would want to see, thought out and budgeted for over, time. So hopefully we can, have a greater discussion on 5th District. The recreation facility area, you and I have talked about Coit Road Park. Coit Road Park has been on the table and part of the discussion for a very long time. Mm-hmm. But I still don't see Coit Road Park. I see other parks and rec centers that are receiving some enhancement. Coit Road has been in desperate need for long before I got here. And every year, we're going to get to it. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out how we get it programmed. And if I'm not mistaken, last year, the year before, even when we talked about it during Back to Basics, it was told to me that we're going to look at possibly our rec facility bonds that we'll put out to see if we can do something there to rebuild Coit Road Park as a whole, and not just as we're doing with other areas with the parks and the playground and swing replacements, but a actual overhaul of Coit Road Park. Garbage cans are broken inside. In fact, there was a neighborhood group from Collinwood who actually went in and painted the graffiti off the walls a couple of years ago. Cut the trees down, fixed the basketball courts, and thank God for them. It wouldn't have gotten done, but Coit Road is in desperate need of repair. There's no parking there. We talked about moving the parking off of Coit Road, where we city-owned, we have various city-owned lots there off of Coit Road as you go south on Coit, so I really hope that we figure out where Coit Road lands and not just continue to kick it down the road because it's been on the books for quite some time, just as Gordon Park was, but we were able to move in a different direction with Gordon Park now. And lastly, on that section, Collinwood Stadium, the track is in desperate need. Like folks are having meets there. It's ripping. It got holes in it. That facility is still a relatively nice facility. With just some minor enhancements, we need to we can really make that track and field, we can put it back in the condition that it once was. So are we, through the chair, are we looking at stadium tracks at all?
Through the chairman,
we can?
Yeah, through the chairman of the councilman, we are looking at that stadium track, and we haven't quite figured out how to time it with what we hope to be, an improvement of the turf field. But our goal is to have them both timed so that we can improve the field and also the football field as well as the track that goes around it. So that's something that we're currently working on. But I don't have a solution for you yet. But we do have money allocated or proposed in future years for synthetic fields. And I'll show you that line. That would be line 50 in here, which so we know that we've been deferring maintenance on turf fields for some time, but we know that we have to start addressing them.
Okay, sounds good. For me that works. As long as we are thinking about a timeline and a plan that we can. I didn't want to bring up the field, because the track is in worse condition than the field. So
yeah.
let's deal with that first, right?
Yeah.
But if we are going to look at it together, then that's okay with me. Yeah, we can look at it together. But it is in desperate need of repair, that track. It's embarrassing when you get these suburban schools that come here and they come to our field, a field that really, is still in good condition with the minor enhancements. Why can't our facilities look like other facilities when you go out of the city of Cleveland? So, thank you for that. And lastly, on where we at? The road and bridge bonds. You and I have talked about St. Clair many times.
I knew you were going to bring this up.
You already know.
Yep.
St. Clair I'm not seeing it. St. Clair is your longest commercial corridor in the city of Cleveland. And it should not look the way that it does, right? I'm glad that other corridors around the city are being taken care of. However, St. Clair, I hear from the businesses in that more eastern area of St. Clair constantly about the condition of the streets. One has a body shop, well, a couple body shops. Potholes, chuck holes, streets, it's like a roller coaster when you drive down St. Clair, right? Some sections are a little bit better than others, as you know, that we've talked about, but St. Clair absolutely needs to be on this list. It's bad. And so whether it's this list or we figured it out, but we cannot let this opportunity pass us and not address the conditions of St. Clair. And when you get down to the Collinwood area, that's Nottingham, but you get Nuclear Park, you get down to the Collinwood area, it's not as bad, but the conditions are bad as well. And so St. Clair should be a priority for all of us. Chair.
So through the chair of the councilman, we agree St. Clair needs to be a priority. What you don't see on here for future years are our issue 1 Dopwick projects, because we're still determining what those projects might be. We think that St. Clair might be a good candidate for that. it's too large to be just one big project. It would have to be phased, and we have to figure out how to work that phasing with the Safe Streets for All, a little bit further east or west that Callie's working on, and then that State Route 283 that we've talked about before. So we're really coming up with the plan for what phase of St. Clair might make a good issue 1 application. And so that's why you don't see that or any other proposed issue 1 projects on here for future years.
Okay, sounds good. So when should I expect the plan from the team?
I got a straight look from Rob there. I don't know if that was a bad look.
Rick, Rob, Keisha?
Chair to the council member.
Yeah.
We've been taking a look at how best to break the project up. I think it's a 7 or 8 mile stretch of roadway, a very long stretch of roadway. Rob's done a lot of work looking at it and driving it and such. The worst section, as you mentioned, is London to Chardon. That's really bad. It's like the PCR is 45 to 30.
Yeah.
That's failed
Terrible.
bad. And that
We feel it every
probably
day.
make a good candidate for issue 1 or NOACA funding. And as we're starting to put the pieces together right now, it looks like that would be our recommendation to start at the Far East because it's the worst. And take care of that aspect. There's the other sections we looked at, and we think it makes sense as far as phasings. East 55th to 72nd, 72nd to 140th, which really isn't that bad of a shape. It's got a PCR of 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pieces here and there, yeah.
Yeah, but considering everything else, it's in decent shape right now.
Yeah.
And then we mentioned East 140th to London, that's got a PCR of 60, so that's starting to go over that hill and starting toward the F section. So those are the 4 phases we're sort of considering right now. We just haven't been able to put where we would think the best place to recommend starting is, even though logically to us, it's London to Chardon.
Gotcha. Thank you to the chair, to the director, and the commissioner. So when should I expect that plan again?
What do you think, sir?
It's April 22nd.
Well, we start.
Because I know we've been
looking
working
at
on it
this-
for a while.
Director mentioned, we start looking at our
He's speaking to the microphone. Thank you.
we start looking at the capital program again in the fall, so we'll start refining this more and trying to understand how best to do it. One big piece is what's it's best eligible for in terms of funding, whether that's issue 1, whether that's NOACA, whether it's something else. So putting all those pieces together, we do a lot of pre-scoring because the issue 1 process is very, very competitive, and you have to really look at all the different categories of scoring and make sure that it does well there, that we can get the funds.
Thank you.
So we're in that
Okay.
time set right now.
And through the chair, so we can have this by when you come back to ask us to approve these bonds for this work, although it may be different. We can have that plan together, right? Well, preliminary plan. How you plan to
Through the
proceed.
councilman and chairman, through the chairman and the councilman, we can for sure tell you what our plan is. Then we have to go out and get the funding to make it happen.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I just want to plan. How are we going to make it
Yep.
happen, all right?
Yep.
And lastly, Mr. Chair, how far in advance are we planned out for the other bonding or issue dollars for road repair? Have we already planned for 25, 26, 27, 28, or where are we at?
Go ahead, Rick.
Because that's
Some of
helpful to
them.
know as well.
Through the chair to the council member, in terms of looking ahead, we have a 3-year program sitting over here. We have a worksheet that we'd use for a 5-year look ahead to kind of understand how pieces are coming together or how we'll have to finance some things. Oftentimes, we have, especially with the now these large projects coming out, you have to chase bonds 2 to 3 different years so you can put all that together and have enough money to support that project that'll be coming up. So those transformative ones may have multiple years. So you need to plan all that out. 3 is workable, 5, you get a good idea where you're going over that period of time.
So through the chair to the director, commissioner, maybe we request, the department's planning of, kind of where you are in terms of your outlook for these bonds or even the issue 1 funding or other types of funding you'd utilize for capital repairs, roads, bridges throughout the city of Cleveland. That's helpful for us to know. So, some folks may not realize that a street for issue 1 bonds may not be until 2028, right, or 2029, because the outlook and the planning of that work. You also coordinate with the county on their programs as well, and so I know they plan out to a point. And so we'd like to know kind of at what stages are the different roads and what you would like to see done as relates to planning across the city of Cleveland. All right.
Through the chairman and the councilman, we can for sure provide you with commitments that we have from Nowaka County, any other entities, because those are the ones that are set with potential years. And so we could provide you anything that we know for sure, and that'll help everybody with their planning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Harrison. I want to say that we really do understand that we have to get our priorities in far ahead of time. So, Director, if those things don't make the cut in 24, make sure that they are being considered for 25. This meeting is, it was so much information here that it's going to take more than just one meeting for us to get our questions out. I didn't get all of my questions out also, so we realized that this was going to take quite a while. But I want to hereby adjourn the Municipal Services Committee and to the next call of the chair.